Chapter 1950. Nothing happened. Seeing Murong acting as if nothing had happened, the poison lady was deeply shocked. On the other hand, Dongfang Haoran was indifferent to this. Along the way, he was already used to being beaten by Murong. While the poison lady was filled with jealousy and hatred, she didn't know that Murong had already secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. If it wasn't for the fact that his main soul was no longer in the soul space, his consciousness would have been erased. Murong still had the chance to Phoenix Nirvana. But at that time, when he fell, if only his consciousness was erased, would he be able to reincarnate? Murong didn't know, and he didn't want to try. If he couldn't reincarnate, he would be in for a tragedy. Thunder Drum. The Thunder Drum definitely exists. The poison lady's gaze swept past Murong and pierced through the thunder and lightning in front of her. The thunder attack, just now, made her suddenly certain that the legendary Thunder Drum was inside. Hearing this, Dongfang Haoran immediately became excited. The Thunder Drum controlled his future and even his life. If he couldn't get the Thunder Drum, he would die without a doubt. However, the current situation made him feel a bit of a headache. Murong, you shouldn't fight with him for the Thunder Drum. But the current variable wasn't Murong, but the Poison Lady. This woman was vicious and merciless. After seeing the Thunder Drum, she would definitely snatch it away. That way, Dongfang Haoran wouldn't have the slightest chance. However, although the Poison Lady was excited, she didn't let her excitement take over her reason and didn't directly rush in. After all, the thunder and lightning there was terrifying. Moreover, if another thunder attack came, she wouldn't be able to take it. Inside should be the real cave of the senior who created this small world. I reckon that not only is there the Thunder Drum, but also the inheritance of that senior, and even the Thunder Spirit. Looking at the thunder and lightning in front of him, Murong suddenly said slowly. Murong's goal was the Thunder Spirit, and Dongfang Haoran's mission was the Thunder Drum. As for the Poison Lady, naturally, the inheritance was the most important. In other words, there was something that the three of them needed in the thunder and lightning. But the problem now was, how would they get what they needed? How would they distribute it after they got it? Senior Poison Matriarch. Murong looked at the Poison Matriarch, but before he could finish, the Poison Matriarch glared at him. It's big sister. Stop calling me senior. Am I that old? Murong's face hardened, even though the femme fatale was considered young. However, which of those who had reached the blessed realm were not old monsters? Moreover, it was before a young man like him. In terms of age, Dongfang Haoran was much older than Murong, let alone the Poison Lady. However, due to the tyrannical power of the Poison Lady, Murong smiled embarrassedly and changed the way he addressed her. He didn't want to be kicked to the ground by the femme fatale. Sister Femme Fatale. Hearing Murong's awkward voice, Dongfang Haoran's face turned red. This was because he was holding back his laughter. Murong glared at Dongfang Haoran, then continued, I need the Thunder Spirit. Dongfang Haoran needs the Thunder Drum. Then, that senior's inheritance is senior's. If I can obtain these things, can Sister Femme Fatale not make a move on us or even steal our things? After we get what we need, we can go our separate ways. The Femme Fatale looked at Murong with suspicion. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Murong. It was because Murong's cultivation was too low. How could he obtain those things? I am confident that I can get it. Murong said with a determined tone. Good. If you let me obtain that senior's inheritance, I won't make a move on you two children, nor will I steal anything from you. This is my promise. For some reason, the Femme Fatale chose to believe in Murong. Moreover, in her heart, she felt that Murong would definitely be able to obtain those things. Good. I believe in you, Sister Femme Fatale. I believe that you won't go back on your word. Murong laughed, then sat cross-legged on the ground and entered a state of cultivation. Seeing that Murong was cultivating with his eyes closed, the Femme Fatale and Dongfang Haoran thought that he was about to make a move. Thus, they didn't say anything and sat down cross-legged on the side. However, he sat like this for more than 10 days. For more than 10 days, Murong didn't even open his eyes. This made the femme fatale a little anxious. On this day, she finally couldn't help but urge, Murongyu, what are you going to make your move? Murongyu didn't even open his eyes, and only lightly said, there's no rush, I still need some time. The femme fatale had no choice but to continue waiting. Then, what was Murongyu waiting for? What he was waiting for was the profound thunder bead. Actually, even though he was full of confidence, he wasn't confident that he could obtain those things. The reason why he said those words, other than to stabilize the femme fatale's heart, was because of the profound thunder bead. After entering the endless lightning, the profound thunder bead began to crazily devour the lightning. Furthermore, this time, Murongyu did not suppress the profound thunder bead. As a result, at every moment, the profound thunder bead would devour a large amount of lightning. As a result, the spiderweb-like cracks on the surface of the profound thunder bead began to rapidly disappear. At the same time, the profound thunder bead also stored more and more thunder energy. Half a month had passed, but the profound thunder bead had not been completely repaired. However, a lot of the cracks had disappeared. Although there were still quite a few, they had already been repaired, hadn't they? Furthermore, Murongyu could feel that the profound thunder bead could only store a large amount of lightning. Right now, Murongyu estimated that the profound thunder bead could already release 10 lightning attacks. Furthermore, the power of each explosion was many times greater than when he killed Li Nan. Right now, if he were to meet Li Nan again, the profound thunder bead would not even need to release much power to kill him. However, these were not the things that Murongyu relied on to obtain the inheritance of the cave dwelling in the lightning. He relied on the fact that the lightning was being devoured by the profound thunder bead. Perhaps the femme fatale and Dongfang Haoren did not notice it, but Murongyu, who was extremely sensitive to lightning, could feel that with every passing moment, the power of the lightning here would weaken by a bit. This was because a large amount of lightning was being devoured by the profound thunder bead. After a few more days, Murongyu, who had been maintaining his cultivation posture, suddenly stood up. Then, he turned into a ray of light and rushed into the endless lightning. Just as Murongyu rushed in, the profound thunder bead that had been devouring the lightning in the depths of the lightning also appeared in the air above his head. Bolts of lightning continuously descended from the profound thunder bead, firmly protecting Murongyu inside, preventing him from being struck by the lightning. The reason why he came in now was not because the lightning here had become weak, to the point where Murongyu could withstand it. The lightning here was still extremely terrifying, and Murongyu himself was definitely unable to withstand it. He was waiting for the profound thunder bead. After devouring 20 days of lightning, the profound thunder bead had already recovered a portion of its power. It was no longer difficult for it to protect Murongyu as he walked through the lightning. He's about to make his move. Dongfang Haoren and the femme fatale both thought so. With the profound thunder bead above his head, Murongyu took a step forward and walked in with large strides. However, he did not walk too far. He only stopped when he reached a place where the femme fatale could not see. Primal Chaos Furnace, refine it for me. Murongyu sat down cross-legged again, directly operating the Primal Chaos Furnace, and began to devour the lightning here. After the Primal Chaos Furnace was upgraded, not only could it refine solid objects that contained a huge amount of power, it could also directly refine existences like lightning. Thus, before the limit of what he could bear, a large amount of lightning crazily surged into Murongyu's body. After being refined by the Primal Chaos Furnace, it directly poured into his body. All of the power was used by Murongyu to increase his strength. He wanted to break through to the Bright World realm here. During this process, the profound thunder bead was also constantly devouring lightning. Murongyu's comprehension of the realm was originally enough. He only lacked the accumulation of power. Thus, when the accumulation of power reached the limit, he finally broke through. First level of the Bright World realm. After breaking through, Murongyu did not immediately end his cultivation. Instead, he continued to refine the lightning, quickly consolidating his realm. However, after consolidating his realm, he began to try to break through the realm of his physical body. Thus, a large amount of power was poured into his physical body. Originally, his physical body had already reached the limit, and it was constantly being refined, almost rejuvenating. Before entering the lightning, he was only equivalent to an 18-year-old. The reason why he could not break through was that his cultivation realm had not reached the bright world realm yet. However, he did not directly break through now. Instead, he continued to refine his physical body until it reached the appearance of a 20-year-old. Only then did he choose to break through the realm. Boom, boom, boom. A series of popping sounds kept erupting from Murong-Yu's body like beans being fried. Just like that, after half a day, Murong-Yu's body trembled violently. An aura that was at least 100 times more powerful than before erupted from his body. The physical body of a bright world realm level 1. Murong-Yu could not help but let out a long howl. With his current bright world realm level 1 cultivation and physical body, he could definitely destroy a creation realm level 1 existence with one punch. If he encountered Li Nan now, he would also have the strength to fight. Should I continue to raise my realm? This thought appeared in Murong-Yu's mind. He really wanted to break through to the creation realm in one go. After all, his current realm was too weak. Swoosh! However, at this moment, an extremely strong and dangerous aura suddenly shrouded his entire mind. Murong-Yu was shocked. Before he could react, he had already taken a step forward and disappeared on the spot. Boom! After a loud bang, the void where he was originally at was directly shattered. This made Murong-Yu's forehead break out in cold sweat. Moreover, what made his hair stand on end was that he actually did not discover who was attacking him. Moreover, there was no extra time for him to think or find the attacker. At this moment, the extremely dangerous feeling shrouded his mind again. Murong-Yu could only shift his body to the side once more to avoid this attack. However, he felt extremely sullen in his heart, and his stomach was filled with anger. Chapter 1951. However, Murong-Yu still did not discover what was attacking him. The other party was too elusive. Moreover, Murong-Yu was now in a passive position. Every time he dodged an attack, he would continue to be attacked. Therefore, he could not stay for long. This could not be helped. Not only was the other party elusive, but its attacks were also very sharp. If Murong-Yu did not dodge, who knew what the consequences would be after he was hit? With a thought, he summoned the He-Tu and the inscription of the Luo, which transformed into a set of battle armor that firmly wrapped around Murong-Yu. At the same time, the weapon fragments were floating on the surface of Murong-Yu's body. As long as Murong-Yu was willing, the weapon fragments would be slashed out immediately. His enormous divine sense quickly spread out and covered the area within a few miles around him. It cannot be helped. In the lightning, the destruction of divine thought was terrifying. This was a safe distance. Whoosh, 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 the mysterious attack kept attacking Murong-Yu. In the beginning, Murong-Yu still did not discover anything. However, gradually he found something. He really did not know what was attacking him. The reason why the other party was elusive. That was because the other party did not have a form at all. It was like lightning that was hidden in the endless lightning. It merged with the lightning and could not be distinguished at all. It was invisible and intangible. Only when attacked did Murong-Yu see the other party. It was an almost transparent humanoid creature that was about the size of a 7- or 8-year-old child. It was not appropriate to call it a creature because Murong-Yu did not feel any life aura from the other party. Lightning spirit. These words suddenly appeared in Murong-Yu's mind. Then, he quickly confirmed the other party's identity. However, why did the other party keep attacking him? Moreover, Murong-Yu even felt obvious hatred and anger from the lightning spirit. Could it be because of the Black Thunder Pearl? It swallowed a large amount of lightning and stole the things that originally belonged to the Thunder Fairy? This thought flashed through Murong-Yu's mind. In reality, Murong-Yu's thoughts weren't wrong. The lightning elves were born from the lightning. Then, they fed on the lightning and cultivated within it. Everything was fine at first, but after the profound thunder bead appeared, it began to crazily plunder the lightning that originally belonged to it. How terrifying was the black thunder bead! The lightning here was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, the Thunder Fairy did not attack the profound thunder bead. This was because it felt that the profound thunder bead would eventually devour enough lightning and no longer devour anything else. However, what made the Lightning Fairy unable to tolerate was that not only did the mysterious thunder bead devour lightning, but even Murong Yu wanted to devour lightning, raise his cultivation base, and raise the level of his body. The lightning sprite finally couldn't take it anymore. Therefore, it erupted. Seizing an opportunity, it immediately used its strongest attack to sneak attack Murong Yu. However, this damned human cultivator's reaction speed was too fast. He actually dodged its sneak attack. However, the Lightning Fairy, who had already attacked, would not stop. It decided that it must kill Murong Yu today. Therefore, it began to attack frequently until now. Since it was the Lightning Fairy, it was Murong Yu's mission target. It was also the mission target of many disciples of the Sun Sect. However, since Murong Yu had encountered it, there was no reason for Murong Yu to let it go. Moreover, even if he wanted to let the Lightning Fairy go, the other party might not want to let him go. According to Murong Yu's observation, he found that the Lightning Fairy's realm was actually not high. It seemed to be at the low-level creation realm. Therefore, although its attack made Murong Yu feel danger, Murong Yu could still dodge it. However, the other party was hidden in the surrounding lightning. Unless he attacked, he would not know which one was the Lightning Fairy. Using divine thought to observe? Don't joke, he couldn't even distinguish it with divine thought. This was because the Lightning Fairy did not have any aura of life at all. It was the same as the surrounding lightning power. If he did not even know where it was, how could he catch it? Murong Yu was a little depressed. However, Murong Yu quickly thought of a way. Black Thunder Pearl. The Black Thunder Pearl could devour lightning power, and the Lightning Fairy could continuously merge with lightning? Then he would devour it together. Thinking of this, Murong Yu smiled sinisterly and began to control the Black Thunder Pearl to devour the surrounding lightning power. Under the profound lightning bead's frantic devouring, the area within a few miles of Murong Yu's body turned into a vacuum without any lightning. If the Lightning Fairy appeared in this area, Murong Yu would discover it. Then he would be able to catch it. But what if the Lightning Fairy did not appear? Murong Yu was not in a hurry. At most, he would devour all the lightning in this area. Sure enough, at the beginning, the Lightning Fairy did not appear. Many more days passed. Under the crazy devouring of the Black Thunder Pearl, the lightning in this area became a lot weaker. If this continued, there was a possibility that the lightning here would be devoured by the Black Thunder Pearl. Dong! Suddenly, a thunder attack appeared out of thin air and directly bombarded Murong Yu. Puff! The consciousness of Murong Yu's soul avatar was immediately erased. However, the Black Thunder Pearl was still devouring the lightning at an incomparably fast speed without any pause. As long as Murong Yu's soul was not destroyed, even if Murong Yu died, the Black Thunder Pearl would automatically devour the lightning. This was its instinct. Seeing that Murong Yu had lost consciousness and the Black Thunder Pearl was still devouring the lightning, the Lightning Fairy could not help but be stunned. With its incomparably simple consciousness, it really could not understand. However, if once was not enough, then it would come twice or even more. Thus, waves of thunder attacks continued to erupt. Murong Yu was fine, but the Poison Lady and Dongfang Howren outside the thunder and lightning were in trouble. Dongfang Howren was fine. With the protection of the purple lightning pagoda, his soul was not shaken. However, he was sent flying every time, making him suffer unspeakably. As for the other Poison Lady, she was in an even worse state than Dongfang Howren. Every time she was attacked by the thunder, her face turned pale and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Even the power in her body was in chaos from the attacks. It was obvious that she was injured. Under the continuous attacks of the thunder, the Poison Lady's gaze kept sweeping towards Dongfang Howren, who was not far away. Although Dongfang Howard was a good person, he was not stupid. Naturally, he could guess what the poison lady was thinking. Therefore, with the help of the thunder attacks, he gradually left the poison lady, afraid that Murong would go berserk and kill him with a slap, then steal the purple lightning pagoda. However, this small world was only so big. Where could he go? Fortunately, the poison lady did not seem to have any plans to make a move. Could it be because of her promise to Murong? In addition to these two unlucky people, the people in the Thunderclap Extreme Ground were also caught in the crossfire. Originally, although the thunder would appear from time to time, the frequency was not fast. This allowed everyone to be prepared to withstand the next thunderous roar. But now, the thunder kept appearing, making it impossible for them to resist. Soon, someone's consciousness was erased by the thunder. Once they lost consciousness, they naturally could not resist the bombardment of the surrounding thunder and lightning. Therefore, very quickly, there were people who fell. In the end, the situation developed to the point where a large number of experts fell. The Thunderclap Extreme Ground was rioting. A large number of experts fell. Under the attack of the thunder, under the premise of a large number of experts falling, many people quickly retreated from the Thunderclap Extreme Ground. In the end, only the very strong or those who had special methods to resist the thunder attacks remained in the Thunderclap Extreme Ground. For these people, the change in the Thunderclap Extreme Ground was very likely that a treasure was about to appear in the Thunderclap Extreme Ground. Could it be the Thunderclap Drum? If they knew that they had guessed that all the rioting was caused by Murong, would they want to kill Murong? At this moment, Murong did not care about what these people thought. This was because his main soul in the Hichu Luoshu was not feeling good either. The thunder attacks came in layers. Although a part of them was weakened by the Hichu Luoshu, there was still a part that directly affected his soul. Moreover, he still had to endure the overflowing damage of the Hichu Luoshu. Of course, it was also fortunate that Murong Yu's cultivation and physical body had both broken through to the Bright World realm and had terrifying strength comparable to the creation realm. Otherwise, his physical body would have been shattered by the overflowing damage of the Hichu Luoshu. This was a situation where one would not rest until one of them was dead. Murong Yu's face was ashen, and he also began to be ruthless. Therefore, he frantically controlled the mysterious thunder bead to devour the surrounding thunder and lightning power. He did not believe that the thunder and lightning spirit could hold on forever. Moreover, Murong Yu also used his fastest speed, constantly shuttling through the thunder and lightning. Wherever he passed, a large amount of thunder and lightning was directly devoured by the mysterious thunder bead. The thunder and lightning spirit was in a tragic situation. It hated the mysterious thunder bead, but it also had some instinctive fear. It was like a subordinate facing a superior. Therefore, it stayed far away from Murong Yu. However, it was not willing to give up. After leaving, it sneaked back and waited for an opportunity to sneak attack Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu's route was simply disorderly. In the beginning, he flew forward, but in the end, he appeared far behind, to the left or to the right. It was also possible that he was above the sky. This made the thunder and lightning spirit extremely puzzled. Because it was not sure of Murong Yu's movements, it was almost devoured by the mysterious thunder bead many times. During this process, Murong Yu also gradually discovered the thunder and lightning spirit's footprints. However, he acted as if he did not discover anything and continued to move in a disorderly manner. Dong! After a loud thunder sound, the world suddenly quieted down. After a long time, there was no more thunder sound. The sudden stop of the thunder made many cultivators around the thunderous extreme ground feel bewildered. They did not know what had happened in the thunderous extreme ground. Moreover, they were even not used to it. At this moment, Murong Yu, who was in the thunder and lightning, also stopped moving and stopped moving. From afar, there was a cold smile and a hint of joy on his face. Could it be that he had picked up a treasure? Cold smile and joy. Could it be that he had been struck down by the thunder? Chapter 1952. However, that was not the case. The thunder suddenly stopped because the thunder spirit was swallowed by the black thunder pearl. Otherwise, under the crazy attacks of the thunder spirit, how could Moronyu dare to stop? After taking a deep breath, Moronyu calmed down and looked at the thunder and lightning in all directions. There was too much thunder and lightning here. Although the black thunder pearl had already swallowed a lot of it, it was still a huge amount. Moronyu was now hesitating whether to continue swallowing the thunder and lightning. If there's really a thunder cave abode in the depths of the thunder and lightning, then I should not swallow the thunder and lightning for the time being. After all, the thunder and lightning can temporarily prevent cultivators from entering. Even a creation realm cultivator would not dare to enter rashly. Once I take the treasures of the thunder cave abode, I will swallow all of them, Moronyu thought to himself. With the black thunder pearl above his head, he walked towards the depths. I wonder what changes will happen to the black thunder pearl after swallowing the thunder spirit. Moronyu was curious and started to look at the black thunder pearl. At this moment, most of the cracks on the surface of the black thunder pearl had disappeared, leaving only a large crack. However, Moronyu estimated that if he swallowed all the thunder and lightning here, the black thunder pearl might recover completely. However, other than those cracks, Moronyu didn't discover anything else out of the ordinary. This was a little disappointing. Originally, he thought that after swallowing the thunder spirit, the black thunder pearl would more or less change. In his disappointment, Morongyu's divine thought touched the surface of the black thunder pearl. Then a huge suction force swallowed his divine thought with a swoosh. In the next moment, Morongyu's face was filled with shock. This was because his divine thought had entered a huge space. What kind of space was this? This was a world of thunder and lightning. The sky and the ground were filled with endless thunder and lightning. It emitted a terrifying pressure. Is this the space inside the black thunder pearl? Moronyu thought in surprise. Because before this, he didn't know that the inside of the profound thunder bead had its own space. And it was very obvious that the profound thunder bead had devoured a portion of the energy, other than using it to repair itself. The remaining portion was all gathered in this lightning world. Only in this way could the profound thunder pearl store lightning. It was precisely because of this that the profound lightning bead could form the profound lightning mountain range. Creak, creak. While Moronyu was observing the world of thunder and lightning, an ear-piercing sound came from afar. Moronyu looked over and saw that the Thunder Fairy was suppressing the center of the world of thunder and lightning. Lightning circled around its body, and thick chains formed from lightning bolts tightly bound the materialized lightning sprite, suppressing it where it stood. No matter how it struggled, it remained motionless. After seeing Moronyu, the Thunder Fairy roared angrily. With a ferocious expression, it kept charging towards Moronyu. However, the lightning chains were so powerful that they bound it tightly, making it unable to move. How much hatred did it have for him? Morongyu's face immediately darkened when he sensed the hatred radiating from the lightning fairy. Rumble! At this moment, waves of terrifying lightning bolts appeared out of thin air, and finally bombarded the Thunder Fairy. The Lightning Fairy immediately let out a miserable shriek. Although it was a Thunder Fairy and could control lightning bolts, it was obvious that the lightning from the profound thunder bead was not something it could control. Therefore, under the bombardment, the Thunder Fairy was immediately severely injured. But immediately after, the lightning bolts quickly surged into the Thunder Fairy's body, quickly healing its injuries. Moronyu tried and realized that he couldn't take the Thunder Fairy out of the space of the profound thunder bead. This made him a little depressed. After all, this was his mission objective. If Moronyu could complete this mission, he would be able to become the disciple of an 8th rank elder of the Sun Sect. It wasn't that Moronyu wanted to get the other party's inheritance. He had the chaotic celestial records and didn't need anyone else's inheritance. He just wanted to rely on the other party's power in the Sun Sect. However, Moronyu wasn't disappointed. He had already broken through to the Bright World realm. Although every small breakthrough required a lot of energy, Murong Yu believed that he would soon reach the peak of the Bright World realm, or even a half-step to the Destiny realm. As long as he reached the half-step to the Destiny realm, Murong Yu wouldn't be afraid of the 8th level elders in the Sun sect. Only the sect master level existences could threaten him. So what if Li Nan's father was an 8th level elder? He still wasn't afraid. He also studied the profound Thunder Bead, and what was the use of binding the Thunder Fairy? But after the study was fruitless, his divine will withdrew from the profound Thunder Bead. Since he couldn't complete the mission now, Murong Yu could only think of another way. The Thunder Cave abode was the next way out. Because of the profound Thunder Bead, even though the lightning in the depths grew stronger, it still didn't pose much of a threat to Murong Yu. Soon, Murong Yu reached the deepest part of the lightning. At this moment, a huge palace formed by lightning appeared in his sight. This is the Thunder Cave abode, right? Murong Yu looked from afar. The lightning here was escaping from the palace. If he guessed correctly, the sound of thunder also came from the main hall. In other words, if there was a thunder drum, it must be in the palace. Maybe the thunder drum was the magic treasure of the profound underworld realm, Lane. There weren't any restrictions or formations outside the main hall. The lightning outside was the best restriction and formation. Moreover, if one didn't have the key, no one would enter this small world. Creak! Murong Yu extended his hand and pushed open the door to the palace, then walked in. The hall was empty. It was not filled with lightning as he had imagined. The furnishings were simple and crude. There wasn't even a table. There was only a rectangular table made of an unknown material at the back of the palace. There was only a brocade box about half a meter long on the table. At this moment, the brocade box was tightly shut. It was unknown what was inside. Other than that, there was nothing else. On the wall to the left of the table, there was a huge drum hanging. When Murong Yu looked at the drum, a sense of danger came from it. This should be the thunder drum. It's definitely a profound underworld realm origin item. Murong Yu thought to himself and walked straight to the table. Reaching out with his powerful hand, Murong Yu directly opened the brocade box. Buzz! Just as a crack was opened on the brocade box, an extremely terrifying pressure came out from the brocade box. At the same time, a black but extremely dazzling light shot out from the brocade box. In an instant, Murong Yu's vision turned black. At this moment, Murong Yu saw a black light rush out from the brocade box at lightning speed and shoot straight at Murong Yu. It was so fast that even Murong Yu couldn't react in time. It's over. This thought instantly appeared in Murong Yu's mind. He thought that this black light was Master Lane, who wanted to possess him like Fun Hua and the others. If it was really Master Lane, this guy was a terrifying existence at the profound underworld realm. How could Murong Yu resist? Just as this thought appeared in Murong Yu's mind, the weapon fragment in Murong Yu's body shook violently. In the next moment, the weapon fragment turned into a stream of light and shot out from his body. Clang! A loud sound of metal clashing could be heard. Murong Yu's body was almost shattered by the impact of this sound. The qi and blood in his body were surging like a raging river. After the loud sound, the world quieted down. The black light that filled the entire hall also disappeared. What's going on? Murong Yu looked ahead with doubt. In front of him, the weapon fragment was quietly suspended in the void, exuding an inexplicably powerful aura. However, at this time, the weapon fragment was much longer than before. This is another weapon fragment. At this time, it has merged into one. Murong Yu immediately reacted. The original weapon fragment was only about the size of a palm. Now that it had merged with the second weapon fragment, it had grown to the length of a forearm. However, it looked like this weapon fragment was both a saber and a sword. It was still impossible to tell whether it was a saber or a sword. With a thought, the weapon fragment turned into a stream of light and shot towards Murong Yu before finally entering his body again. After feeling the power of the weapon fragment, Murong Yu's face lit up with joy. The original weapon fragment was very terrifying. With his current strength, after using the weapon fragment, he could fight against a Stage 2 Creation Realm Cultivator. If he used the weapon fragment now, he could even kill a Stage 2 Creation Realm cultivator. Even against a Stage 3 Creation Realm cultivator, Muronyu was confident that he could fight. In fact, after merging with the second weapon fragment, the power of the weapon fragment was at least 100 times stronger. It was just that Muronyu's realm was too low, so he could not exert much power. However, the weight of a weapon fragment that had fused with 2 fragments was enough to crush a pinnacle Bright World Realm cultivator or even kill him. Only Muronyu, who had recognized it as his life weapon, could easily move it. However, what made Muronyu feel a little pity was that even so, the weapon fragment was not complete. However, if an incomplete weapon fragment was so powerful, what if it was a complete weapon? What level of origin item would it be? Would it surpass the Insight Realm? However, Muronyu was confident that he would be able to find all the weapon fragments. What was his would still be his. Therefore, he quickly put this disappointment to the back of his mind and began to stare at the Thunder Drum. This was an origin item of the Insight Realm. At this time, although the Thunder Drum exuded a terrifying aura like that of an Archean fierce beast, it stood quietly in place and did not make any sound. This made Muronyu feel a little strange. Moreover, it did not resist Muronyu's collection and was directly put into the Hichu Luo Shu by Muronyu. Chapter 1953. Thunder Spirit, Thunder Drum, all of them. At least Muronyu and Dongfang Haoran's mission had been completed. But what about the inheritance of Thunder Sound? Muronyu helplessly searched the entire hall. However, he didn't find anything, let alone the inheritance of Thunder Sound. There wasn't even the slightest bit of news about Thunder Sound. Muronyu couldn't help but feel a little distressed. If he left now, he could directly teleport away through the Hichu Luo Shu. But what about the Poison Lady and Dongfang Haoran? Forget about the Poison Lady. Muronyu didn't have any friendship with her. But if he left just like that, it would be a trap for Dongfang Haoran. Without the Thunder Drum, Dongfang Haoran would die. And if Muronyu didn't obtain the inheritance of Thunder Sound and gave it to the Poison Lady, Dongfang Haoran would also die. At that time, the Poison Lady would definitely go crazy. Although Muronyu's strength had increased greatly, he still wasn't a match for the Poison Lady. This woman was at least a high-level existence in the Creation Realm. Her strength was too terrifying. What should I do? Muronyu really didn't know what to do. Could it be that there's something mysterious about this palace? Muronyu suddenly had this thought, and then he took out the roadmap. Wong. As soon as the roadmap appeared, it exploded with a dazzling light. At the same time, it broke free from Muronyu's hand and flew into the air, quickly spinning. However, this change only lasted for a few breaths of time, and then the dazzling light disappeared. At the same time, the roadmap floated down again and was caught by Muronyu. With a puzzled look, Muronyu looked at the roadmap. With one look, he couldn't help but be shocked. This roadmap was originally engraved with the route to the Thunder Sound Cave. But after the mutation, just now, those routes were gone. Instead, it was replaced with a cultivation technique and some comprehension of cultivation. Inheritance? What was inheritance? This was inheritance. At this moment, Muronyu felt that he was being cheated. This roadmap was the legacy. However, it could only be activated after entering Lei Yin's cave. Otherwise, it would just be a roadmap. If the three of them knew that the inheritance of Lei Yin was in their hands, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Would they come back to life out of anger? Muronyu took a look. Apart from Lei Yin's main cultivation method, there are also many battle skills and insights. In fact, Lei Yin's inheritance had no effect on Muronyu. What he valued was Lei Yin's understanding of cultivation and other experiences. Muronyu did not lack cultivation techniques, but what he lacked was experience and comprehension. Therefore, he directly copied Lei Yin's inheritance and various treasures. While he was cultivating, he could refer to these insights to increase his strength. Moreover, some of Lei Yin's combat skills were also very advanced. Muronyu could also cultivate them. Even if it was Lei Yin's cultivation method, Zhao Jiqing and the others could also cultivate it. With the Thunder Spirit, Thunder Drum, and Lei Yin's inheritance in his hands, Murong turned and was about to leave. However, he had only taken a single step when he stopped. This palace seemed to be an origin tool, and it also seemed to be a profound underworld-level origin tool. Zhao, Jiqing, and the others had always lacked spatial treasures that could carry living people. Therefore, they took this palace. Therefore, Murong began to take this palace. Perhaps because Lei Yin had died long ago, there was no difficulty in taking this palace. It was directly taken by Murong. Rumble, the huge and incomparably majestic palace, quickly shrank. At the same time, the thunderbolts outside were also rapidly shrinking back. In almost the blink of an eye, the lightning outside the thunderclap extreme ground disappeared without a trace. The sound of thunder completely disappeared, followed by the disappearance of the lightning. This series of strange phenomena caused everyone outside the thunderclap extreme ground to be puzzled. However, no one dared to step into the thunderclap extreme ground. After all, they didn't know what the situation was. What if the thunder and lightning reappeared? Wouldn't that kill all of them? Swish, swish, swish. In the small world, Poison Matriarch and Dongfang Haoran were dumbfounded as they watched the lightning quickly disappear. Murong Yu's figure also appeared in their line of sight. At this time, Murong Yu still didn't know what had happened. He grabbed at the air with his big hand and grabbed the palace that had shrunk to the size of a fist. I'll devour all the lightning before leaving, Murong Yu thought in his heart. He was about to take out the profound thunder bead to continue devouring the lightning. But soon, he saw that there was no longer any lightning around him. In the next moment, Dongfang Haoran and Poison Matriarch heard Murong Yu scream, "Damn it!" Murong Yu did feel that it was a scam. However, he finally understood that the lightning was definitely emitted by the palace. Now that he had taken the palace, the lightning naturally disappeared. A profound insight-level origin artifact had such terrifying power. At the same time that he felt that he was being cheated, Murong Yu was also incomparably happy. Murong Yu, what's the situation? Poison Matriarch and Dongfang Haoran jumped in front of Murong Yu. They both had nervous expressions on their faces as they asked cautiously. Poison Matriarch wanted to break through to the Netherworld realm. If she didn't have an inheritance, it would be difficult for her to break through, so she was a little nervous. As for Dongfang Haoran, it was even easier to understand. If he couldn't complete the mission, he would definitely die. Murong Yu looked at the two of them expressionlessly. This caused Poison Matriarch and Dongfang Haoran's hearts to sink. They thought that Murong Yu didn't get anything. But at this moment, an incomparably huge drum appeared in front of Murong Yu. At the same time, a vast and unparalleled might was emitted from the thunder drum, intimidating everyone. Thunder drum. Poison Matriarch and Dongfang Haoran's pupils constricted, and Dongfang Haoran couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Murong Yu, you're really giving me the thunder drum? Dongfang Haoran trembled because of excitement. Murong Yu nodded. Although the thunder drum was a netherworld origin tool, it was still quite attractive to him. However, he would definitely do what he promised. He would never go back on his word. Not to mention that the thunder drum was only a netherworld origin tool. Even if it was a higher level origin tool, he would still give it to Dongfang Haoran. Moreover, he believed that as long as his strength continued to increase, there would be no lack of origin tools like the thunder drum. Thank you. Dongfang Haoran was so excited that he incoherently thanked Murong Yu. Then, he kept the thunder drum into his spatial treasure. Poison Matriarch watched all of this with shining eyes. It was obvious that she was quite tempted by the thunder drum. If she could obtain the thunder drum, even if it was a half-step netherworld realm expert, she wouldn't be afraid. She was confident that she could fight with him. However, she didn't make a move to snatch it because Lei Yin's inheritance was better. I wonder if Murong Yu has obtained Lei Yin's inheritance? Or would he hand over the inheritance after obtaining it? If it was her, she probably wouldn't hand it over, right? Poison Matriarch thought to herself. Just as she was thinking, Murong Yu handed her a jade slip. Of course, it was the jade slip. Murong Yu had already copied Lei Yin's inheritance into the Jade Slip without missing a single word. Originally, he planned to leave behind the Jade Slip and give the real inheritance to Poison Matriarch. However, Murong Yu later discovered that the real inheritance contained a trace of Lei Yin's comprehension and a trace of his aura. If he cultivated with Lei Yin's aura, he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Therefore, how could he give such a good thing to Poison Matriarch? If he hadn't promised Poison Matriarch, he wouldn't have given her anything. After all, they didn't have any friendship. Moreover, Poison Matriarch wanted to kill them before. Rumble. Just as Poison Matriarch took the Jade Slip and probed it with her spiritual sense, a series of earth-shattering sounds rang out in their ears. This loud noise immediately gave them a big shock. Not good. This world is about to collapse. Let's get out of here. Dongfang Haoran's face changed. But after he spoke, his face became even uglier. They were all drawn in by the map. How could they get out? Where could they get out? Even Poison Matriarch's face changed. Murong Yu didn't care. He could enter Hichu Luoshu and teleport away. However, he wouldn't let Poison Matriarch enter Hichu Luoshu. Although he knew that she wouldn't kill him after learning about Hichu Luoshu, he didn't know if she would explode and kill him. Thus, he grabbed Dongfang Haoran and disappeared in a flash before Poison Matriarch could react. Poison Matriarch was stunned for a moment before she reacted. This brat better not let me see you again, or else I won't let you off. As she spoke, Poison Matriarch had already soared into the sky and flew towards the sky. At this time, the small world she was in had already begun to collapse from all directions. Shua, Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoran had already appeared outside the thunderous extreme place. What's going on? For a moment, Dongfang Haoran didn't react. He didn't know why he would suddenly appear here. He didn't know why the small world would suddenly collapse. In fact, Murong Yu had already vaguely guessed the truth. Lane must have died a long time ago. The small world he left behind looked fine, but it was already on the verge of collapse. The reason why it was able to hold on and not collapse was because of the palace left behind by Lei Yin. Now that the palace had been taken away by Murong Yu, the small world had lost its support and naturally began to collapse. However, the small world was still a small world. Even if it collapsed, it wouldn't have any effect on the thunderous extreme place. Of course, from then on, the thunderous extreme place had completely disappeared. This made the disciples of the Sun School who came here to capture the Thunder and Lightning Fairy feel regret. Without the Thunder and Lightning Fairy, they lost the chance to become the disciple of an 8th level elder. When would such an opportunity appear? Murong Yu only found out about this later. He appeared outside the thunderous extreme place and quickly left with Dongfang Haoran. He didn't want to meet Poison Matriarch again. Needless to say, Poison Matriarch must be gnashing her teeth at him. Chapter 1954. Murong Yu, you've helped me a lot this time. I won't say any more, or I'll be hypocritical. If you need anything in the future, just send me a message, and I'll help you even if I have to sacrifice my life. After leaving the Thunderclap Extreme Grounds, Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoran separated. After all, one of them was going back to the Dongfang family, while the other was going back to the Sun sect. The two big forces were going in different directions. Murong Yu rolled his eyes and looked at Dongfang Haoran speechlessly. He helped Dongfang Haoran because he felt that he could be friends with him, not because he wanted to be repaid. Moreover, if he wanted someone to repay him, Murong Yu wouldn't have looked for Dongfang Haoran. This guy had been living a miserable life in the Dongfang family. By the time he had the ability to repay him, who knew what realm Murong Yu would have reached? At that time, why would he need Dongfang Haoran to repay him? Dongfang Haoran, do you think that if you bring the Thunderclap drum back, your position in the family will rise? Looking at Dongfang Haoran, Murong Yu said with a heavy expression. The Thunderclap drum was a dark insight level origin tool. Not to mention Dongfang Haoran, who is only a bright world realm first level cultivator. Even if a creation realm cultivator obtained it, it would cause a fatal disaster. Moreover, with Dongfang Haoran's position in the Dongfang family, The Dongfang family would most likely kill him after he handed over the thunderclap drum. After all, if the news of the Dongfang family obtaining the thunderclap drum spread, all the forces in the solar system would probably make a move against them. The Dongfang family was strong, but there were 8 other forces that were similar in strength. Moreover, there was the Lunar Sect and Sun Sect, 2 behemoths that far surpassed them. Dongfang Howren wasn't an idiot and quickly understood the meaning of Murong Yu's words. Immediately, his face became gloomy. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of this before, but he still had to bring the thunderclap drum back. Not only because of him, but also because of his father. Even if it's like this, I must bring the thunder drum back. Dongfang Howren said to Murong Yu with a resolute expression. Murong Yu couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Could this guy's brain have been damaged in the explosion just now? Why would he go back when he knew that he would be courting death? You have the thunder drum, and your aptitude is also very good. As long as you have enough resources, you can grow quickly without relying on the Dongfang family, Murong Yu said in a low voice, trying to persuade this brain-damaged guy not to go back. Dongfang Howren shook his head. I'm going back not only because of me, but also because of my father. My father's last wish was for me to return to the core of the Dongfang family and eventually take charge of the Dongfang family and dominate the solar system. Murong Yu was speechless. Dongfang Howren's wish was truly powerful. Did he think that Dongfang Howren had the ability to do so? It's the same if you go back after breaking through to a higher realm, Murong Yu advised again. Dongfang Howren shook his head, not wavering in his decision. This made Murong Yu have the urge to slap this guy to death. Since that's the case, I'll go back with you, Murong Yu said helplessly. Dongfang Howren looked at Murong Yu in shock. You don't want to go back and report? After you get the Thunder Spirit, you'll be the disciple of a rank 8 elder in the solar system. Your status will also rise along with it. Dongfang Howren couldn't understand. Why would Murong Yu give up that opportunity? If it were him, he would immediately return to the solar system and become the disciple of that rank 8 elder. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. To be honest, the Thunder Spirit had no use for him. The reason he came here, other than to repair the mysterious Thunder Bead, was to capture the Thunder Spirit. Originally, he planned to use the Thunder Spirit to become the disciple of that rank 8 elder. But wasn't the Thunder Spirit imprisoned by the mysterious Thunder Bead? In Murong, you couldn't get it out of the mysterious Thunder Bead space. In other words, Murong, you couldn't complete this task. And he killed Li Nan. Li Nan was only a rank 2 elder. Murong, you didn't put him in his eyes. But Li Nan's father was a rank 8 elder. If he couldn't become the disciple of that rank 8 elder, how could Li Nan's father let him go? Without anyone to protect him, Li Nan's father Li Jiang would definitely kill him with a slap. A dignified rank 8 elder killed an inner disciple. Would the upper echelons of the Sun sect say anything about it? No matter how you looked at it, Murong Yu's value was far below Li Jiang's. Therefore, in a short period of time, the Sun sect couldn't go back, and he had nowhere to go, so he could only go back with Dongfang Howren. With him, Dongfang Howren might not be destroyed by the Dongfang family. This time, it was Dongfang Howren's turn to persuade Murong Yu. But Murong Yu's character was also one that wouldn't change once he decided on something. In the end, under Dongfang Howren's long sigh, the two of them rose into the sky and flew towards the Dongfang family. A rank 1 bright world realm cultivator wasn't high or low in the solar system, but it was enough to avoid a lot of trouble. After several years of continuous flying and teleportation, Murong Yu and Li Jiang finally entered the Dongfang family's territory. Flying Wolf Star. Isn't this young Master Howren? I heard you want to look for the Thunderous Drum. Now that you're back, you must have found the Thunderous Drum. Ha ha! When Murong Yu and Li Jiang stepped out of the teleportation array, before Murong Yu had time to observe his surroundings, a strange voice sounded in his ears. When they looked over, they saw a few low-level Bright World Realm youths standing in front of them. And those people were looking at Dongfang Howren with a mocking expression. Clearly, they were mocking Dongfang Howren. Ha ha! Look at the young master's confident face. You must have found the thunderous drum. If that's the case, why don't you take out the thunderous drum and let us brothers see it?" Another person mocked. "You guys think too highly of young Master Howren, don't you? With his cowardly and useless appearance, he dares to go to the thunderous extreme ground? I heard that he became a good person outside the thunderous extreme ground and persuaded others not to go in. Didn't the thunderous extreme ground change afterwards? Did those who didn't go in feel grateful to you, young Master Howren?" Muronyu furrowed his brows when he heard those mocking words. Even if the target of their ridicule wasn't him, his heart was filled with anger. If it was him, he would have already killed those disgusting people with a punch. But now that it was Dongfang Howren, and he was the one involved, he couldn't overstep his boundaries. Therefore, he looked at Dongfang Howren. Dongfang Howren was indeed a good person. His temper was surprisingly good. His face remained calm despite the sarcasm and ridicule directed at him by those people. However, Muronyu discovered a terrifying killing intent hidden in the depths of his eyes. Seeing this scene, Muronyu suddenly felt a bit familiar. Wasn't this similar to when he was in the mortal world before he entered the cultivation world? In the Murong family, even if his surname was Murong, he didn't have any status to speak of. Even the lowest level servants could bully and humiliate him. And now, Dongfang Howren was like a copy of him, repeating the same story. "Let's go." Dongfang Howren only coldly glanced at them, then left with Muronyu. But those people already blocked in front of Muronyu. "Dongfang Howren, don't you know that the Flying Wolf Star is our Dongfang family's headquarters? This is a top secret place. It's strictly forbidden for unknown people to sneak in. I see that this kid is suspicious. His eyes are flickering. I suspect that he's a spy for other forces. You guys take him down and kill him on the spot." The leading Bright World Realm expert pointed at Muronyu and sneered, although he also wanted to kill Dongfang Howren. But Dongfang Howren was still a disciple of the Dongfang family. Publicly killing a disciple of a family on the Flying Wolf Star was not allowed. Although they couldn't kill Dongfang Howren, they could kill Muronyu. It seemed that Muronyu was Dongfang Howren's friend. If they killed Muronyu, what would Dongfang Howren's expression be? Before he finished speaking, several Bright World Realm powerhouses had already made their move. Their big hands reached out, directly grabbing Muronyu. A terrifying aura was emitted from their bodies. They actually burst out with their strongest power, trying to kill Muronyu in one blow. Murongyu's pupils suddenly shrank. A terrifying killing intent brewed in his heart. These bastards wanted to kill him? They were simply courting death. Scram! However, before Muronyu could make a move, Dongfang Howren made his move first. He first let out a loud shout, and then violently attacked with both fists. These people mocked him, but he endured it. After all, he had been like this for many years. However, Muronyu was his friend, his brother. Muronyu also helped him obtain the Thunder Drum, so he was greatly indebted to him. He would never allow these people to do anything to Muronyu. What's more, these people wanted to kill Muronyu. This directly caused Dongfang Howren to explode. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, Dongfang Howren sent the few cultivators who were trying to grab Muronyu flying. One by one, they spat out blood in the void. Scram! Dongfang Howren's body erupted with a terrifying aura that was dozens of times stronger than those people. He was like a war god descending to the world as he shouted with a murderous aura. Bright World Realm, 2nd level. The Dongfang family disciple's expression changed as he exclaimed, "You didn't expect it, did you? I just went out for a trip and broke through a small realm?" Dongfang Howren sneered, took a step forward, and threw a punch at him. The other party sneered and rushed forward without fear. He was also a Bright World Realm 2nd level. How could he be afraid of Dongfang Howren, who was in the same realm? Seeing this fool rushing towards Dongfang Howren, Murongyu's eyes flashed with disdain. Although Dongfang Howren was only at the 2nd level of the Bright World Realm, Muronyu had given him special training on the way here. Although Dongfang Howren's true strength wasn't as abnormal as Murongyu's, he definitely wasn't someone that the fool could contend against. Chapter 1955. Sure enough, with a loud bang, Dongfang Haoran's fist landed on the opponent's face. A terrifying power erupted from Dongfang Haoran's fist and directly landed on the opponent's face. Immediately, blood splattered and the opponent's entire face was smashed. Perhaps because Dongfang Haoran was merciful, the opponent's face was only smashed and sent flying. Otherwise, Dongfang Haoran's full power would have blown away the opponent's head and soul. Seeing this scene, Murong couldn't help but shake his head. If it was him, no matter who he was, he would have killed him with a single punch. He was just an outer disciple of the Sun Sect, yet he dared to kill a second-rank elder of the Sun Sect. What else did he not dare to do? Of course, that was because he didn't know that Li Nan's father was an 8th-rank elder of the Sun Sect. But so what if he knew? He would still kill without hesitation. Otherwise, if he didn't kill the opponent, would he just wait for the opponent to kill him? Seeing Dongfang Haoran's ferocity, the people who were sent flying were stunned and looked at Dongfang Haoran with a horrified expression. Dongfang Haoran took a step forward and stepped on the face of the second-rank Bright World Realm Dongfang family disciple who was smashed by him. Is my friend a spy? While speaking, his foot was still spinning, constantly squeezing the opponent's face. At the same time, a power constantly poured into the opponent's body from the soles of his feet, constantly bombarding the opponent's flesh and meridians. The intense pain finally made the cultivator unable to bear it and let out a mournful scream. Seeing this scene, the other cultivators' faces turned green with fright. Dongfang Haoran's current performance was poles apart from his previous cowardly appearance. It was as if he had turned into two completely different people. No, he's not a spy. The person who was stepped on by Dongfang Haoran finally couldn't bear it and denied Murong Yu's claim that he was a spy. In fact, this was just an excuse for him to repair Dongfang Haoran. How hard was it to change his words? Scram. Remember, don't let me see you again in the future. Otherwise, I'll beat you up every time I see you. With that, Dongfang Haoran kicked the person flying. Let's go. That person quickly healed the injuries on his face. Then he looked at Dongfang Haoran with incomparably bitter eyes and quickly left. You are still too kind. Murong Yu shook his head. Dongfang Haoran faintly smiled and didn't say anything. He flew forward with Murong Yu. In fact, he had changed enough today. He was no longer as low-key as before. However, his change was inevitable. Because of his return, regardless of whether the mission was completed successfully or not, his ending would not be too bad. Therefore, at this point, why did he still need to keep a low profile? Of course, being high profile did not mean that he could kill people. With his status, if he killed anyone from the Dongfang family, those who wanted him dead would definitely kill him. The Flying Wolf Planet was the headquarters of the entire Dongfang family. The people of the Dongfang family usually lived on this planet. Of course, the Flying Wolf Star was a 4-yuan star. It was extremely huge. In addition to the people of the Dongfang family, there were also a large number of people who relied on the forces of the Dongfang family and a large number of rogue cultivators. It was these people who formed the cultivator world of the Flying Wolf Star. Moreover, Murong Yu also found that even if people who weren't from the Dongfang family entered the Flying Wolf Star, they still needed to do some inspection. Therefore, the excuse of the person who framed him as a spy was really nonsense. The Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi in the center of the Flying Wolf Star was the densest, and this was also the headquarters of the Dongfang family. Other than the disciples of the Dongfang family, no one else could get close. Of course, the people invited by the Dongfang family were excluded. Moreover, even if it was the headquarters, other people could also enter and leave the outer area. Dongfang Haoran brought Murong Yu forward without any obstruction. It wasn't that no one dared to stop Dongfang Haoran, but they didn't meet anyone along the way. This was because the place they were going was very cheap. In the end, Murong Yu stopped in front of a dilapidated manor at the foot of a mountain. This is your house. The house is quite big. Other than being a bit dilapidated and lacking in Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi, there are no flaws. Murong Yu said with a smile. Dongfang Haoran smiled embarrassedly. Originally, his house was in the core area of the Dongfang family, and the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi there was more than 10 times denser than here. However, after his father passed away, he was forced to come to the outermost area of the Dongfang family. The Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi here was barren, even worse than other places, and even Chaos Realm experts couldn't cultivate here. This was because the nearby Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi had been sucked away by the Dongfang family's array. However, Dongfang Howren had no other choice. This was the headquarters of the Dongfang family. If he left here, who could guarantee that he wouldn't mysteriously disappear? Although the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi here was relatively barren, at least his safety was guaranteed. Moreover, because he was alone, he didn't usually take care of this manor. Therefore, although the manor was big, it was very dilapidated. In the end, Moronyu found a room, cleaned it up himself, and lived there. Bang! In less than 2 hours, the door of the manor was kicked to pieces. At the same time, a young man with eyes above his head strode in. At this time, Moronyu happened to be in the courtyard, but the young man didn't seem to see his existence at all and looked straight at the house behind. Dongfang Howren, get out here. Dongfang Howren walked out of the house with a gloomy face, and his eyes flashed coldly as he looked at the young man. This guy was too arrogant. Although Dongfang Howren didn't take care of his house, it was still his house. The other party didn't kick his door, but his face. The elder orders you to hand in the mission immediately. The young man only glanced at Dongfang Howren with disdain, and then turned to leave after saying that. It was as if staying here for a moment would make him lose points. He came so quickly. Moronyu sneered. Although this mission had a time limit, it was far from the deadline. The other party wanted Dongfang Howren a hand in the mission so early, it was obvious that they wanted to kill Dongfang Howren as soon as possible. Dongfang Howren coldly snorted and lifted his foot to follow that person. But he was stopped by Moronyu. Moronyu couldn't help but ask in a speechless manner, "Are you planning on going alone? What else can I do? I'm just a single person." Dongfang Howren said in a straightforward manner. Moronyu couldn't help but laugh. This guy didn't have any backing in the Dongfang family. Even if he went later, it would still be the same. In the end, this matter was unavoidable. "What do you plan to do?" Moronyu asked again. "I'll take it one step at a time." Dongfang Howren shook his head. He was now facing a large group of Blessed Realm experts from the Dongfang family. Even if he had some plans, in the face of absolute strength, all plans were useless. "If they want to kill you, how will you deal with it?" "I'll kill them all. Even if I die, I'll drag them down with me." Moronyu was speechless again. If he had this awareness earlier, why would he come back? Wouldn't it be better to wait until he was stronger before coming back? "I have a way to help you temporarily stall those people, but you need to hand in the mission later." Dongfang Howren's face suddenly showed a touch of joy. If he could avoid death, who want to die? He, Dongfang Howren, had not lived long enough. Moreover, he still wanted to control the Dongfang family and dominate the solar system. Although he knew that with Moronyu here, he couldn't dominate the solar system. But if he didn't fight, how would he know whether he could or not? Thus, he turned around and walked back, ignoring the dumbfounded disciple. "Dongfang Howren, what do you mean? You're not coming with me to hand in the mission?" The youth was suddenly a little confused. "Go back and tell them, I will definitely hand a mission, but not now. I'll go whenever I want. You can get lost." Dongfang Howren's voice came from the house. The youth who heard it gritted his teeth. He wanted to punch Dongfang Howren to death. But in the end, he didn't do it, otherwise he might be the one to die. What method? In the Hichu Luo Shu, Dongfang Howren looked at Moronyu with some excitement. He had already seen that Moronyu had a treasure that could carry a living person, so he didn't find it strange. Make the thunderous drum recognize you as its master. This way, they will have some misgivings about you and won't dare to kill you. Moronyu said lightly. Dongfang Howren rolled his eyes. He had already considered this possibility. If after recognizing him as its master, he lied to them that once he died, the thunderous drum would automatically fly away, those people might have some misgivings. But all of this had to be based on him being able to recognize the thunderous drum as its master. Otherwise, everything would be meaningless. The thunderous drum was a profound underworld-level origin tool. Why would it take a fancy to him, a little universal realm cultivator? And even if they took a fancy to him, he didn't have enough time to make the thunderous drum recognize him as its master. Time isn't a problem at all. As for whether you can make the thunderous drum recognize you as its master, with my help, it shouldn't be a problem, Murong Yu said with confidence. However, Dongfang Haoran looked at Murong Yu with some suspicion. Although Murong Yu's battle strength was heaven-defying, it didn't change the fact that he was a Universal Realm Level 1. A Universal Realm Level 1 could help him make a profound underworld-level origin tool recognize him as its master. If it wasn't for Murong Yu, he would have already kicked him. Wasn't this cheating? Didn't he have a script for bragging? Moreover, how was he going to solve the problem of time? Just as a lot of questions appeared in Dongfang Haoran's mind, the next moment, the scene in front of him changed, and he appeared in a strange space. I have a treasure that can accelerate time. The flow of time is 100,000 times faster. With my help, if you still can't recognize the thunderous drum as its master, then I have nothing to say. In order to help Dongfang Haoran, Murong Yu had already revealed his trump card. 100,000 times the flow of time. Dongfang Haoran's body trembled because of excitement. Chapter 1956. The thunder drum was taken out by the excited Dongfang Haoran. However, it was unknown if it was because the thunder drum was originally a profound underworld origin tool, but it seemed to be very cold and did not care about Dongfang Haoran at all. In fact, Dongfang Haoran had been communicating with the thunder drum ever since he obtained it. However, the thunder drum did not care about him at all, or maybe it disdained to care about him. It was the same now, quietly standing on the ground without moving. Dongfang Haoran was a bit annoyed. In addition to communicating with the thunder drum, he had also tried to move it. However, even if he poured all his power into it, the thunder drum still did not move. Therefore, he guessed that this thunder drum could only be moved after reaching the manifestation realm. Moreover, even if it was moved, it would not be able to exert much power. If it could not be moved, then even a powerful, profound underworld origin tool would be a piece of scrap iron. Murong Yu did not pay attention to the thunder drum, nor did he try to move it, because there was no need. The thunder drum was Dongfang Haoran's. His task was to help Dongfang Haoran recognize this profound underworld origin tool as its master. Shua, with a thought, the profound lightning bead, which was almost fully repaired, appeared in front of Murong Yu. Wong. The thunder drum, which had always been cold and elegant, trembled involuntarily the moment the profound thunder bead appeared. This was quite obvious, not to mention that Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoran were both looking at it. Therefore, the thunder drum's reaction was clearly seen by the two of them. Seeing the thunder drum's reaction, Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoran were delighted. Especially Dongfang Haoran, who was incomparably excited. It's good that there's a reaction. I was afraid there wouldn't be a reaction. So what if you're cold and elegant? Everything has its weakness. You're just a profound underworld origin tool. Murong Yu said indifferently in his heart. The reason why he had the confidence to help Dongfang Haoran recognize the thunder drum as its master was because of the profound thunder bead. The profound thunder bead was most likely the seamless underworld's origin tool. Murong Yu did not know what grade it was. However, it must be much stronger than the profound thunder bead. Moreover, the profound thunder bead was a lightning treasure. What was a treasure? It was a monarch. In other words, the profound thunder bead was a monarch of lightning treasures. As for the other lightning-type origin artifacts and treasures, they were its subjects. Which subject wouldn't be intimidated by the monarch? Unless they were rebellious ministers. Thunder drum, I don't know if you have an artifact spirit, but I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying. The profound thunder bead is of a much higher level than yours, and you should know how it behaved in the thunderclap world. Even the thunder fairy was devoured. Now, I'll give you two choices. Recognize Dongfang Haoran as your master and protect him, allowing him to display a portion of your power. Otherwise, it will be devoured by the black thunder bead and refined. Murong looked at the thunder drum and said in a low voice. Murong voice had not yet faded when the thunderous drum shook fiercely. Immediately after, a wave of energy fluctuations containing a sense of fear spread over. Murong and Jin Xiaotian sensed it. The thunderous drum was actually afraid? Dongfang Haoran was immediately shocked, so he turned to look at Murong. He did not know what Murong said to the thunderous drum to make this cold and elegant, profound, underworld origin artifact feel fear. However, this was definitely a good thing. Being afraid was good. Murong continued to ask. In the end, the thunderous drum agreed to recognize Dongfang Haoran as its master and protect him. Dongfang Haoran, you can now recognize the thunderous drum as its master. After a while, Murong turned to Dongfang Haoran and said, Okay. Dongfang Haoran did not react for a while and directly followed Murong's instructions. But just as he was about to recognize the thunderous drum as its master, he reacted. What? You said I can recognize the thunderous drum as its master? Dongfang Haoran was incomparably excited. Murong nodded and looked at him. Hurry up. Even if the thunderous drum agrees to recognize you as its master, it will still take a very long time. Hichu Luoshu's time acceleration burned a large amount of origin crystals every moment. Although he had plundered all the treasuries of the 6 great worlds of the Sky Martial World, although there were many origin crystals, it was not enough for Hichu Luoshu to consume. Moreover, this was under the situation of accelerating time by 100,000 years. If the time acceleration was more than that, the consumption of origin crystals would be even more terrifying. However, there was no need for that. Dongfang Haoran nodded. Although he did not know that Hichu Luoshu's time acceleration was burning origin crystals, he also knew that the price of time acceleration was enormous. Therefore, he began to recognize the thunderous drum as its master. In the following time, Murong had nothing to do. Therefore, he took this opportunity to teleport back to his cave residence in the Sun Sect. Zhao, Jiqing, and the others were still cultivating. At this time, their realms were already very high. He believed that it would not be long before they all stepped into the Bright World realm. At this time, the disciples of the Sun Sect who went to the thunderous extreme ground had also returned. However, no one caught the lightning fairy. As for the reason why the thunderous extreme ground disappeared, many people guessed the reason. The lightning fairy must have been caught by someone. However, no one knew who was the one who had captured the lightning fairy. However, many people guessed that the person who caught the lightning fairy would soon appear, because they had a hand in the mission. In fact, their guesses were basically correct, but the last one was ridiculously wrong. If the profound lightning bead did not imprison the lightning fairy, Murong would definitely come back to hand in the mission. However, he could not take out the lightning fairy, so he could not return to hand in the mission. As for the lightning fairy, Murong did not care much about it, because no matter how those people guessed, they would not associate him with the person who caught the lightning fairy. What he cared about was killing Li Nan. At this time, Li Jiang was still in seclusion, trying to break through to a higher realm. However, the people in his faction had already made a move, madly inquiring about the news. The news that Murong received was that Li Jiang's people had already suspected Murong. However, Murong was just an outer disciple. How could he have the strength to do that? Moreover, Elder Wang, who had gone to the Tianwu world to recruit Murong and the other disciples, had said that Murong was indeed in the chaotic world and had not hidden his realm. Then, here came a question. Just who killed Li Nan? Li Jiang's people had investigated for a long time, but they could not find a suspect other than Murong. Only Murong. However, Murong did not have the strength to do so. Originally, Li Jiang's people had already eliminated Murong. However, when they learned that Murong had won first place in the Tianwu world in the selection competition, they began to suspect Murong again. That was because one of the rewards was a Creation Realm expert's full power attack. The Creation Realm expert, who sealed his power, was not very strong. He was only in the 3rd level of the Creation Realm, and was a 3rd level elder of the Sun Sect. However, Li Nan was only a 2nd level elder. Therefore, If Morongyu had taken out that reward, he could have killed Li Nan. In the end, Morongyu became the final suspect. Immediately, Li Jiang's people began to arrest Morongyu. However, Morongyu seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There was no trace of him at all. As for Morongyu's cave residence, that was because no one knew about the existence of Zhao, Jiqing, and the others. Li Jiang's people had also confirmed that Morongyu had left and had not returned. Therefore, no one dared to touch his cave residence. Otherwise, with Li Jiang's great ability, wouldn't it be easy for his people to enter Morongyu's cave residence? Therefore, after learning this news, Morongyu moved Zhao, Jiqing, and the others from the cave residence to Hichu Luoshu. He did not dare to take the risk of letting them continue to stay in the Sun Sect. If they were caught by Li Jiang's people and used to threaten him, that would be a tragedy. If Dongfang Haoran could control the Dongfang family, it would be a good idea for Jiqing and the others to cultivate in the Flying Wolf Star. Morongyu suddenly had this idea. However, Dongfang Haoran's strength was still too low. How could he control the huge Dongfang family? Of course, anything was possible. Morongyu's eyes flashed. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. Now, he definitely could not return to the Sun Sect. Li Jiang's people were looking for him. If he went back, he would die. At least, he could go back when he had the strength to contend with Li Jiang. Then, Morongyu must first cultivate to the 9th level of the Bright World Realm. This way, he would be able to contend with Li Jiang. And if he wanted to control the Sun Sect, he would need to at least reach the Creation Realm. After all, although the Sun Sovereign was only a powerful existence at the half-step Insight Realm, but according to legend, the Sun Sect had a supreme Insight Realm overseeing it. Of course, no one dared to confirm this news. But there was no smoke without fire. Then I can only help Dongfang Haoran gain a foothold in the Dongfang family. Then I'll help him control the Dongfang family. Morongyu instantly decided. Wang. At this moment, the thunderous drum in Hichu Luoshu trembled. It turned into a stream of light and entered Dongfang Haoran's body. The thunderous drum finally recognized Dongfang Haoran as its master. But Dongfang Haoran's cultivation was too weak. Even with the thunderous drum's agreement, it still took decades for it to completely recognize him as its master. This made Morongyu quite speechless. It seemed like it didn't take him much effort to recognize the mysterious Thunder Bead as its master. After spending some time to let Dongfang Haoran familiarize himself with the thunderous drum's power, Morongyu teleported back to the Flying Wolf Star, Dongfang Haoran's manor. Rumble. As soon as Morongyu and Dongfang Haoran appeared, a torrent of power descended from the sky. It carried a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It wanted to kill Morongyu and Li Jiang in one fell swoop. No, they didn't want to kill him. They wanted to destroy Dongfang Haoran's manor. After all, Morongyu and Li Jiang had just teleported back. How could those people know that they had suddenly appeared? After all, the other party was only a Bright World Realm cultivator. Moreover, Morongyu found that Dongfang Haoran's manor had been razed to the ground. Bastard, you're going too far. Dongfang Haoran was furious. He took a step forward and rushed towards the other party. During this process, he had already taken out the thunderous drum. Die for me. Dongfang Haoran roared and slapped the thunderous drum with his big hand. Chapter 1957. The Thundernote drum faced the few Bright World Realm cultivators of the Dongfang clan, and then it suddenly exploded with a world-shaking sound. Dong. Rip, bolts of lightning burst out from the thunder drum and swept towards the few cultivators of the Dongfang family. The thundering sound attack was one step ahead, causing ripples to appear in the void. Morongyu narrowed his eyes slightly. After being intimidated by the mysterious thunder bead, the thunder drum really did its best. Although the power released this time wasn't very strong, it was comparable to a half-step into the creation realm. Although Morongyu didn't know how many times Dongfang Haoran could release this level of power, at least he had the strength to fight against a half-step into the creation realm expert. Pooh! 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 The most terrifying thing about the thunder attack wasn't the damage to the body, but the ability to erase one's consciousness. The few people who destroyed Dongfang Howren's manor were only low-level Bright World Realm cultivators. How could they resist the thunder attack, comparable to a half-step into the creation realm? Therefore, their consciousness was erased in the first moment. They stood motionless on the spot with dull expressions on their faces. However, this movement didn't last long before the thunder from the thunder drum drowned them. After a series of crackling sounds, the few low-level Bright World Realm cultivators were bombarded by the thunder and lightning until not even dregs were left. They couldn't be more dead. Courting death. Dongfang Howren cursed with an ashen face. Although he was a good person, he was a good person. However, he wasn't stupid. The reason why he seemed a little weak before was because he didn't have the strength and wanted to hide his strength. However, he didn't need to hide anymore. He needed to be high profile. Can't a good person kill? These people were too much. On the surface, they destroyed Dongfang Howren's manor, but in reality, they were stepping on his face. This made Dongfang Howren, who was on the verge of exploding, finally explode. Aren't you afraid of being killed by your family's core disciples or elders? You actually killed a core disciple of the Dongfang family in broad daylight. Murong looked at Dongfang Howren and said with a smile. Although he was worried for Dongfang Howren, he didn't look worried on the surface. In fact, Dongfang Howren's decisiveness in killing was what Murong admired the most. Today, even if Dongfang Howren didn't kill anyone, he still wanted to kill those Bright World Realm cultivators. He wanted to force out Dongfang Howren's ability in this area. After all, if one wanted to become a powerhouse of a generation, it was impossible to do so without using forceful methods. If he wanted to take control of the Dongfang family, he would definitely need to use bloody methods to suppress them. Let's go to the mission hall, Dongfang Howren said, and then went to the mission hall with a murderous look. If he wanted to turn the quest, he had to go to the quest hall. In fact, although the Dongfang family was a family, it was similar to the Sun sect, and the various departments were the same. When they approached the Dongfang family's base camp, they began to encounter disciples of the Dongfang family, one after another. Many people, after seeing Dongfang Howren, gave him a look of disdain. All of them looked down on Dongfang Howren. After all, the current Dongfang Howren couldn't even compare to the most common disciple of the Dongfang family. He wouldn't be able to achieve anything in the future. Under such circumstances, naturally, no one wanted to befriend him. However, Dongfang Howren's speed was extremely fast. Those Dongfang family disciples who met Murong wanted to find trouble with them, but it was too late. In a hurry, Murong rushed directly to the Dongfang family's mission hall. Bang! Dongfang Howren took out the thunder drum and directly smashed it on the mission hall's counter. Gotcha! The counter that was smashed directly broke into thousands of pieces. As the fragments flew, countless people were hit by the fragments. As for the disciples of the Dongfang family behind the counter, they were so scared that they took several steps back. There were even a few disciples who were so scared that they fell to the ground. It was incomparably embarrassing. At first, they thought that an enemy was attacking. But after seeing that it was Dongfang Howren, they were all furious. Dongfang Howren, you trash. Are you courting death? You dare to destroy the mission hall. Just this point alone is enough to sentence you to death. A mission hall disciple looked at Dongfang Howren with murderous intent and coldly said. Dongfang Howren coldly smiled. I'm sorry, this origin tool is too heavy. I couldn't control the strength well. Although he said sorry, Dongfang Howren didn't look like he was apologizing. This guy was clearly doing it on purpose. The surrounding people also saw this point. One by one, they surrounded Dongfang Howren with murderous intent and wanted to beat him up. Although they wouldn't kill him, they could beat Dongfang Howren, this trash. It would be best if they beat him up until he couldn't get out of bed for the rest of his life. Seeing the surrounding people surrounded him with murderous intent, Dongfang Howren only sneered with a face of disdain. My mission has been completed. This is the thunder drum. Dongfang Howren looked at the people in the mission hall and suddenly said loudly. The surrounding people's footsteps suddenly stopped. They all knew that Dongfang Howard's mission to become a core disciple was to find and take back the Thunder Drum. But everyone knew that this was impossible. It was just that some people wanted Dongfang Howard to die. But today, not only did Dongfang Howard come back, but he also brought back the Thunder Drum. Could it be that the thing that looks like a big drum is the Thunder Drum? It's ordinary, and there's nothing special about it. This guy couldn't have just randomly found a drum to fool us, right? The same thought appeared in everyone's mind. It's not that they don't believe it, but this mission is simply impossible to complete. Because the Thunder Drum is only a legendary thing, it's still a question whether or not it exists. Huh, just based on a trash like you want to get the Thunder Drum? Don't tell me you just casually found a big drum to fool us? A Dongfang family disciple suddenly laughed and looked at Dongfang Howard with a face of ridicule. At the same time, he walked over with large strides. Dongfang Howard turned his head to look at the disciple with a face of ridicule. Do you want to try? Ha! That's exactly what I was thinking. The disciple laughed, and his footsteps didn't stop at all. He still quickly ran toward Dongfang Howard. Dongfang Howard's face suddenly revealed a brilliant color. He grabbed the Thunder Drum with one hand and faced the person coming over. At the same time, his other hand slammed on the Thunder Drum. Boom! After an earth-shattering sound, the disciple who was rushing toward Dongfang Howard immediately stopped. At the same time, the ridiculing expression on his face disappeared and his eyes became lifeless. Although his life force was still there, everyone felt as if something was missing from his body. A blood-curdling scream suddenly came out. Then the people around the disciple who had his consciousness erased all screamed and ran out at the same time. All of them were bleeding from their 7 orifices. Although Dongfang Howard's attack was only aimed at that cultivator, the people around him were still affected. I'm sorry. The Thunder Drum is too powerful and hard to control. Just now, it killed 3 people outside the manor. Now, it erased another person's consciousness. I'm really sorry, Dongfang Howard said in a strange tone, but his face was full of ridicule. Erased consciousness? Could that really be the Thunder Drum? Everyone's expression changed, and they couldn't help but distance themselves from Dongfang Howard and Murong Yu. Because of Dongfang Howard's mission, the people of the Dongfang family had some understanding of the Thunder Drum. They all knew that the Thunder Drum could erase a person's consciousness. Originally, they were still a little skeptical, but now that they saw the cultivator's appearance, they couldn't help but believe it. And what did Dongfang Howard say? Killed 3 people outside his manor? Did this guy eat a leopard's guts? He actually dared to kill a family disciple and erased another family disciple's consciousness? Did he think that he could kill people without restraint after taking back the Thunder Drum? The surrounding people looked at Dongfang Howard with angry eyes. It wasn't that they were angry for the people who were killed or had their consciousness erased by Dongfang Howard, but they couldn't understand. Why did this trash Dongfang Howard get the Thunder Drum? Why not them? What qualifications did this trash have? This was the reason why they were angry. At the same time, more people's eyes revealed greed. It was obvious that each and every one of them wanted to monopolize the Thunder Drum. Is my mission considered complete? Dongfang Howard raised the Thunder Drum up high and said to the disciple who scolded him before. That disciple was so scared that he almost peed his pants. His face was pale as he looked at Dongfang Howard. His eyes were filled with fear. This mission needs to be judged by the mission hall elder. I'll go ask the elder to come. Before his voice fell, the disciple had already fled. He didn't want to be hit by the Thunder Drum. If he lost his consciousness, then everything would be for naught. Am I that scary? Looking at the mission hall disciples behind the counter leaving, Dongfang Howard glanced at the surrounding people and then smiled. This bastard who told you to show off. Later, you'll be crying. The surrounding people cursed at Dongfang Howard in their hearts. They had always looked down on this trash. Even if he was strong, they still looked down on him. And vaguely, their hearts were burning with jealousy. Dongfang Howard, the elder invites you upstairs. At this time, the mission hall disciple ran out. Before he reached Dongfang Howard's side, he had already stopped and said loudly. Dongfang Howard didn't say anything and walked towards the second floor. Murong Yu naturally followed behind him. Only you are allowed to enter the second floor, the disciple from the mission hall hurriedly said. What did you say? Dongfang Howard glared at him. That disciple's face turned pale, and he immediately retreated. He didn't even look at Murong Yu. He pretended not to see. After passing through the stairs, Murong Yu quickly went up to the second floor. Then, they entered a room. Kneel down. When the two of them took half a step into the room, a cold shout came from the front. At the same time, an incomparably powerful aura rolled over like a stormy sea, enveloping Murong Yu and Murong Yu. Chapter 1958. Dongfang Howard suddenly felt as if the entire four-origin star was pressing down on his back. As the huge force poured down, Dongfang Howard felt his legs go soft and couldn't help but kneel down. It wasn't that he wanted to kneel down, but the other party's aura was too terrifying. Dongfang Howard couldn't resist at all, kneeling down to someone, even if that person was a creation realm expert. This was a scene that Dongfang Howard didn't want to see. Therefore, when he saw that he was about to kneel down in humiliation, he couldn't help but be shocked and angry. But at this moment, a big hand was placed on his shoulder. When the big hand touched his shoulder, a powerful force instantly enveloped him. Dongfang Howard immediately felt his entire body relax. The huge pressure that was like the four-origin star that was pressing down on him also disappeared in an instant. Murong Yu had made a move. Dongfang Howard couldn't help but feel grateful. He didn't know how to repay Murong Yu for helping him again and again. If only he was a woman, he could repay Murong Yu with his body. Otherwise, he really didn't know how to repay Murong Yu. As steady as Mount Tai, standing tall and unmoving. Seeing Murong Yu standing tall and unmoving like a mountain in the wind, the two people in the house who were releasing the pressure couldn't help but exclaim. Then, when they saw Murong Yu's realm clearly, their faces turned gloomy. Why are you two juniors so uneducated? Don't you know that you have to kneel and greet the elders of the family? An old man with a long beard looked at Murong Yu with a gloomy face. At the same time, a huge aura rolled over, wanting to suppress Murong Yu. Unfortunately, no matter how strong his aura was, he was only a creation realm level 1. As for Murong Yu, although he was only at the first level of the Bright World realm, he had the strength of a first-level creation realm expert. Therefore, the other party's aura couldn't do anything to him. I only know how to kneel to the heavens, earth, and parents. You're just an old man who bullies others? Why should I kneel? What qualifications do you have to accept my kneeling? Dongfang Howard angrily rebuked. In any case, from today onwards, he had already severed ties with the upper echelons of these families. So why should he give them face? What's more, they were all shameless. All right, why bother so much with these two juniors? We just need to verify the authenticity of the thunder drum, another old man said calmly, trying to be the good guy. However, Murong Yu and Dongfang Howard did not give him a good look. If this old man was really a good person, he would have stopped the other old man from pressuring them when they came in, but he didn't. Therefore, these two old fellows were the same. They were not good people. The long-bearded old man nodded with a dark expression and withdrew his aura. Originally, he wanted to directly suppress Dongfang Howard, but he never thought that his aura would not be able to do anything to Murong Yu. Dongfang Howard, right? Hand over the thunder drum and we'll verify it, Dongfang Peng said to Dongfang Howard with a pleasant expression. However, he didn't think that Dongfang Howard would respectfully hand over the thunder drum. Dongfang Howard only looked at him indifferently and didn't show any signs of handing over the thunder drum. I don't believe you. With the terror of the thunder drum, who knows if I'll hand it over to you and you'll kill me to steal it. Dongfang Peng frowned slightly and said with some displeasure, You little friend, you're really something. We're both elders of the mission hall, so why would we covet your treasure? Moreover, your mission item was supposed to be handed over to the mission hall. I want a promise from the patriarch. If I complete the mission, I'll be a core disciple of the Dongfang family. Moreover, the family's experts will have no choice but to make a move against me in one reincarnation cycle, Dongfang Haoran said indifferently. In one reincarnation cycle, with Dongfang Haoran's aptitude and talent, as long as he had enough resources, he could definitely break through to the creation realm and even reach the half-step insight realm. The long-bearded old man, Dongfang Qing, waved his hand impatiently. All right, I'll agree to your 2 requests on behalf of the Patriarch. Quickly hand over the thunder drum. Who do you think you are? On what basis can you agree on behalf of the Patriarch? Moreover, do you have the qualifications? Dongfang Haoran directly scolded. Dongfang Qing's face was incomparably gloomy and his eyes flickered with a terrifying killing intent. Dongfang Haoran had repeatedly contradicted him and despised him. In addition to the matter just now, he had already developed a strong, killing intent. You little bastard, I told you not to let this little bastard take a mile after taking an inch. I'll directly kill him today. Dongfang Qing coldly shouted with a murderous aura. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at Dongfang Haoran, wanting to kill him. Murong Yu shook his head and punched out. In fact, Dongfang Qing had long been unhappy with Murong Yu. When he saw that Murong Yu actually dared to resist, he turned his attack around and aimed it at Murong Yu. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the attacks from both sides had already collided in the void. After a loud sound like cloth being torn apart, Dongfang Qing's big hand was directly shattered. Murong Yu's big hand went straight ahead. Before Dongfang Qing could react, it had already smashed onto his head. Instantly, Dongfang Qing's head exploded like a rotten watermelon. Even his soul couldn't escape in time and was casually crushed by Murong Yu. Dongfang Qing, the first elder of the Dongfang family's mission hall, had died. You actually killed Dongfang Qing? Dongfang Peng stared blankly at the scene. After a long time, he exclaimed, Not only him, even you will die. Murong Yu sneered. He took a step forward and was about to attack and kill Dongfang Peng. But at this moment, a thunderous voice suddenly rang out in the house. Stop! At the same time, a robust and tall middle-aged man appeared in the room. Patriarch! Dongfang Haoran's heart trembled, but his eyes revealed an as expected expression. It turned out that this wasn't his idea. It was Murong Yu's idea. He must make this matter known to the Dongfang family patriarch. Although the appearance of the thunderous drum would definitely alarm the Dongfang family patriarch. But alarmed and showing up were 2 different things. If the other party didn't show up, Dongfang Haoran would be in danger. Of course, it didn't mean that Dongfang Haoran wouldn't be in danger after the Dongfang family patriarch showed up. It was just a glimmer of hope in the midst of danger. The 2 of you come to the main hall of the conference hall. After the Dongfang family patriarch appeared, he frowned and glanced at Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoran before disappearing. He didn't pursue the matter of Dongfang Qing's death. Murong Yu didn't think so. Dongfang Haoran's greatest danger was in the conference hall. Thus, the 2 of them left the mission hall and came to the conference hall. You 2 juniors gave up too much. You actually made us seniors wait for you here for half a day. This time, when Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoran stepped into the conference hall, there was no powerful aura suppressing them. Otherwise, Murong Yu wouldn't have been able to resist it and would have escaped immediately. However, there were still people who made things difficult. In the conference hall, other than the Dongfang family patriarch who just appeared, there were also dozens of people. All of them were old monsters at the high level of creation realm. Sure enough, these old monsters were already alarmed. I was too naive in the past, thinking that I would be safe after taking back the Thunderdrum. Dongfang Haoran thought in his heart, feeling more and more grateful to Murong Yu. Family patriarch, you must have seen what happened before. I did bring back the Thunderdrum, and it is a real Thunderdrum. However, at that time, I accidentally recognized the Thunderdrum as its master, so Dongfang Haoran pretended to be embarrassed and took out the Thunderdrum. A 7th rank elder couldn't wait to snatch it, but then his face became gloomy, because he found that the Thunderdrum was indeed recognized as its master. The others, including the Dongfang family patriarch, looked at the thunder drum with shining eyes, and their breathing became rapid. This was a profound insight realm origin tool. It was stronger than them by an entire realm. However, it didn't matter that it was recognized as its master. With his strength, he could easily erase Dongfang Howren's consciousness that was attached to the thunder drum. How could he waste a profound insight realm origin tool on a bright world realm brat? However, before he was ready to erase Dongfang Howren's consciousness, Dongfang Howren's voice came, "Elder, be careful. Don't try to erase my consciousness on the thunder drum." At that time, the thunder drum took the initiative to recognize me as its master. Once my consciousness is erased, it will directly fly away. With your strength, I'm afraid you won't be able to stop it. Hearing this, the seventh rank elder's heart trembled, and his hand trembled, almost throwing the thunder drum away. At the same time, the other elders and family patriarchs' faces darkened. They didn't know if Dongfang Howren was telling the truth, but it was better to be safe than sorry. If what Dongfang Howren said was true, then this profound insight realm thunder drum would have nothing to do with their Dongfang family. Thus, each and every one of them felt a headache. If that's the case, why don't we just look at Dongfang Howren's memories? An 8th rank elder suddenly had this idea, and in the next moment, he was about to detain Dongfang Howren and directly seize his memories. However, Dongfang Howren spoke again. "I know that the elders don't believe this disciple's words, but you can read my memories. After reading my memories, you will find that all of this is true. However, my memories have already been protected by the thunder drum. I don't know if the thunder drum will flip out or leave me when you read my memories." The Dongfang family's elders and family patriarchs really had no other choice, and the only feasible path was blocked. What now? Just watch as the profound insight realm thunder drum was carried by Dongfang Howren. Chapter 1959. For a moment, the Dongfang family's elders and patriarch were hesitant. The thunderous drum was a profound insight realm origin tool, and it was very attractive to them. But they were also afraid that the cooked duck would fly away. Although they didn't believe Dongfang Howren's words, they would rather believe it than not. Otherwise, what if it was true? When the thunderous drum flew away, even if they killed Dongfang Howren, it would be useless. Then, if they wanted to keep the thunderous drum, they could only stabilize Dongfang Howren first, and then slowly plan. There was no other way. The thunderous drum was on Dongfang Howren, so they still had a chance to seize it. But if it flew away with their ability, the thunderous drum would have nothing to do with them. Thinking of this, the Dongfang family's patriarch laughed, and then said loudly, "Dongfang Howren, since you have completed this task, you will naturally be promoted to Dongfang family's inner disciple. And from today onwards, you will be the Dongfang family's key disciple. All kinds of resources will begin to pour in for you." Hearing the patriarch's words, all the senior elders present were taken aback, but they quickly reacted. Immediately, they couldn't help but secretly praise their patriarch for his wisdom. His reaction was unusually fast. "That's right, Dongfang Howren, from now on, you will be the Dongfang family's key disciple. With your aptitude, breaking through to the manifestation realm in a short time shouldn't be a problem. However, the thunderous drum is very important, so I hope you won't leak it. Otherwise, it won't be good for you or our Dongfang family. Moreover, your current realm is too low. If you continue to stay outside, it will be easy for accidents to happen. From today onwards, you will move to the Dongfang family. Before you reach the manifestation realm, don't go out." A 7th rank elder looked at Dongfang Howren and said lightly. Dongfang Howren's face turned cold. On the surface, it seemed like this level 7 elder was thinking for his own good. But in reality, he was imprisoned. As long as Dongfang Howren didn't leave the Dongfang family, they could monitor him at any time. Once he thought of a way to take the thunderous drum, they would take action. Dongfang Howren wasn't an idiot. How could he not think of this? But now that he was a fish on the chopping board, he could only be slaughtered. At least, the Dongfang family didn't immediately make a move on him, right? As for the future, as long as his strength increased, Would he be afraid of these hypocritical and shameless people? Dongfang Haoren immediately agreed. Immediately after, these elders kindly showed concern for Dongfang Haoren, but in reality, they had placed many restrictions on Dongfang Haoren. In the end, Murong Yu and Huang Xiaolong left the hall. Then, he moved into an excellent manner among the core disciples of the Dongfang family. However, after they moved in, all kinds of resources were sent over by the Dongfang family. Elixirs, origin tools, and heavenly materials and earthly treasures. He was indeed worthy of being a disciple that the Dongfang family had focused on. If he had received such treatment from the beginning, even if Dongfang Haoren was unable to reach the manifestation realm, reaching the half-step manifestation realm would not be a problem. Regarding this, Dongfang Haoren sneered and accepted it all. These were all things that he deserved. They were his to begin with. However, the more the Dongfang family acted like this, the more disgusted Dongfang Haoren was. Of course, if it were an ordinary person, they would really think that the Dongfang family was going to focus on nurturing him. However, these were all just smoke bombs. Murong Yu, thank you. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid I would have been a corpse today. At this time, Dongfang Haoren let out a sigh of relief and thanked Murong Yu. Murong Yu shook his head. You're my friend. Helping you is what I should do. There's no need to thank me. However, they have temporarily compromised. If they find out or think of a way to take away the thunder drum, it will be your death date. Right now, you're just prolonging the time of your death. Dongfang Haoren's face was gloomy as he shook his head. How could he not know? Strength. My strength is still too weak. If I had the strength of a high-level manifestation realm expert, how could they do anything to me? Dongfang Haoren said with some unwillingness. Right now, they were in the depths of the Dongfang family. Moreover, there were some manifestation realm elders secretly monitoring them. They absolutely could not leave the Dongfang family. This kind of life made Dongfang Haoren very unhappy. In fact, if Murong Yu wanted to leave, the Dongfang family would not be able to stop him. However, he knew that Dongfang Haoren would never leave. As such, Murong Yu had no other choice but to take one step at a time. In the following time, Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoren did not leave the manor. As for Dongfang Haoren, he used the pills and treasures provided by the Dongfang family to start cultivating. This guy was really well prepared. Before returning to the Dongfang family, his strength had already broken through to the second level of the Bright World realm. After cultivating for a month, his cultivation had increased by 2 small realms, reaching the 4th level of the Bright World realm in one fell swoop. In other words, he had increased by 1 small realm in half a month. If this spread out, it would definitely be earth-shattering. Those so-called geniuses were not worth mentioning in front of Dongfang Haoren. However, the resources given to him by the Dongfang family were almost used up. He did not have any good impression of the Dongfang family. Therefore, after running out of resources, he immediately asked the Dongfang family for more resources. The Dongfang family did not say anything and directly sent over a large number of resources. This could not be helped. Who asked them to covet the thunder drum? Now, they would grant all of Dongfang Haoren's requests. In this regard, Dongfang Haoren enjoyed the resources that originally belonged to him with a clear conscience. Another month later, Dongfang Haoren had broken through to the 5th level of the Bright World realm. Even Murong Yu couldn't help but feel envious when he saw how fast he'd risen by 3 minor realms in 2 months. Of course, Murong Yu was envious of Dongfang Haoren's speed of breakthrough, not his strength. In fact, after Dongfang Haoren broke through to the 5th level of the Bright World realm, his strength had greatly increased. Coupled with the Thunder Drum, it was probably enough to contend against a half-step creation realm or even a first-level creation realm expert. However, he was still not Murong Yu's opponent. Although Murong Yu was still only at the 1st level of the Bright World realm, it was enough to kill Dongfang Haoren, who used the Thunder Drum. Murong Yu let out a long sigh. In the past 2 months, his cultivation had almost stagnated. Although he was also cultivating, he did not have a huge amount of energy to refine and devour. His cultivation speed was too slow so slow that it made one's hair stand on end. This was all because of his huge appetite. Just as Murong Yu was sighing and preparing to find a way to devour a huge amount of energy, Dongfang Haoran woke up from his cultivation. His accumulation could only allow him to quickly break through to the 5th level of the Bright World realm. It would not be so easy to break through later realms. Dongfang Haoran, Purple Sun Paradise will open in 10 days. There's a spot for you. You have to be prepared for the last 10 days. An illusory voice suddenly shrouded Dongfang Haoran's manner. At the same time, a jade slip appeared in front of Murong Yu and Murong Yu. Purple Sun Paradise? Dongfang Haoran was shocked at first, then he was overjoyed. At the same time, he reached out and grabbed the jade slip. Purple Sun Paradise? Murong Yu's eyes also shot out 2 dazzling lights. Paradise meant that there were treasures. There was a possibility that an item containing a huge amount of energy would appear. This meant that Murong Yu's cultivation might be able to increase. This was a good thing. Murong Yu was overjoyed. He felt that the Dongfang family was too good at handling people. They sent him a pillow when he was dozing off. Murong Yu, in 10 days, we will explore Purple Sun Paradise together. Dongfang Haoran laughed and handed the jade slip to Murong Yu. Murong Yu took it and immediately used his divine sense to explore it. There was nothing in the jade slip, only a simple introduction of Purple Sun Paradise and some things to pay attention to. Purple Sun Paradise was within the Dongfang family's sphere of influence. It was the most mysterious and powerful paradise controlled by the Dongfang family. Only the core disciples of the Dongfang family were qualified to enter and cultivate. This Purple Sun Paradise should be a great world. It might be a great world left behind by a fallen expert. Dongfang Haoran suddenly said in a deep voice. Purple Sun Paradise was actually quite secretive. Many people in the Dongfang family were not qualified to know about it. Because of Dongfang Haoran's special identity, he had learned about it from his father a long time ago. However, at that time, they only thought that Purple Sun Paradise was a paradise opened by a great sect in ancient times. However, after the Thunderclap Extreme Ground incident, Dongfang Haoran had a new conjecture. It was a great world of a peerless expert. Because Purple Sun Paradise was comparable to 4-element star, there were not only creation realm beasts inside, but also a large amount of heaven and earth treasures and other treasures. In the past, the people of the Dongfang family entered the Purple Sun Grotto to cultivate and obtain treasures. Because of this, Dongfang Haoran was so excited after knowing that he was going to enter Purple Sun Paradise. Purple Sun Paradise might be a good paradise. To others, it is a chance to give away treasures. But to you, it might be a chance to die. Murong Yu suddenly sneered. It was as if a basin of cold water was poured on Dongfang Haoran's head, instantly waking him up. That's right. Although the patriarch said that Dongfang Haoran was a key disciple of the Dongfang family, who would believe it? Since he was not a key disciple, how could Dongfang Haoran be qualified to enter Purple Sun Paradise? But now, he was qualified to enter. This was definitely a conspiracy against Dongfang Haoran. 3 months was enough for the Dongfang family to think of a way to deal with Dongfang Haoran. Obviously, they chose to make their move in Purple Sun Paradise. Purple Sun Paradise was most likely Dongfang Haoran's burial ground. Even if I refuse to go, they will still have a way to let me enter Purple Sun Paradise. Since they want me dead, then bring it on. However, Murong Yu, you don't have to follow me this time. Dongfang Haoran decided and said with a murderous look. Chapter 1960. Outside Purple Sun Paradise. Countless core disciples of the Dongfang family stood in groups of 3 to 5. When they saw Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoran slowly walking over, they all looked at them with cold and disdainful eyes. All of their faces were filled with disdain. The news of Dongfang Haoran completing the mission and becoming a core disciple had long spread among them. If it was a normal person, they would feel admiration for Dongfang Haoran completing the mission. But for some reason, They all felt admiration for Dongfang Haoren. On the contrary, they felt more and more disdain for him. Some people even felt that Dongfang Haoren was a core disciple of the Dongfang family like them, which made them feel humiliated. Standing with Dongfang Haoren was a humiliation. Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoren were already used to these people's gazes. Therefore, they didn't change their expressions at all. These people didn't affect their mood at all. In fact, they disdained Dongfang Haoren, and Murong Yu even more disdained them. Whether it was aptitude, talent, or potential, how could these people compare to Dongfang Haoren? Not to mention Murong Yu. Dongfang Haoren, I didn't expect you to come at such a good time. What? You only brought a bright world realm, first-level trash? Birds of a feather flock together. A trash like you can only bring a trash subordinate. A core disciple walked over and ridiculed Dongfang Haoren with a face full of disdain. Every time Purple Sun Paradise opened, only the core disciples of the Dongfang family were qualified to enter. However, every core disciple could bring one person in. It was because of this that Murong Yu openly followed Dongfang Haoren. Otherwise, he would have to think of another way. Dongfang Haoren didn't care about the person's ridicule. He just stood there and closed his eyes to rest. On the other hand, Murong Yu looked at the newcomer with interest, as if he was looking at a rabid dog flying around. That's right, this person was a mad dog. Seeing Dongfang Haoren ignoring him and Murong Yu looking at him like he was an idiot, the person was very angry. But what could he do? Since the other party was ignoring him, what else could he do? Thief, a few days ago, something went missing from my house. At that time, I suspected that it was you. Let's see where you can escape to today. The man stared at Murong Yu. After a few breaths, he suddenly shouted. At the same time, he stretched out his hand to grab Murong Yu. What a poor excuse that was. The people around couldn't help but despise that guy in their hearts. How shameless was he to come up with such an excuse? Scram! A cold glint flashed in Murong Yu's eyes as a strong killing intent burst out from his heart. At the same time, he kicked out. With a bang sound, the person didn't have time to react at all. He was kicked in the abdomen by Murong Yu, and then directly kicked out. Except for the elders of the Dongfang family, Murong Yu didn't put the others in his eyes. If it weren't for the elders of the Dongfang family, Murong Yu would have kicked that person to death. For people who came to court death, Murong Yu would never let them down. What powerful strength! Seeing this, the pupils of the surrounding people shrank as they all looked at Murong Yu. Although the person who was kicked out was only a rank 2 Bright World Realm, Murong Yu was only a rank 1 Bright World Realm. A rank 1 Bright World Realm sent a rank 2 Bright World Realm flying? If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe it. Moreover, even if they saw it with their own eyes, not many people would believe it. You're courting death. Because Murong Yu was merciful, that person was only kicked out and felt a little pain. He wasn't injured. However, his heart was very hurt. Therefore, after he stabilized his body, he rushed over with a ferocious expression. However, before he could rush over, a large foot kicked him out again. This time, it was even more ruthless than Murong Yu's. Half of Murong Yu's body had exploded from the kick. This time, it was Dongfang Haoren who kicked out. After kicking half of the person's body, Dongfang Haoren took a step forward and rushed up. His large foot stepped out again. Gotcha! After a muffled sound, Dongfang Haoren's foot fiercely stepped on the person's face, directly crushing it. In fact, the person's entire body was stomped deep into the ground. Trash, do you want to die? Dongfang Haoren said coldly. At the same time, he stepped on the person's head. It was so painful that the person screamed. The surrounding people looked at this scene with their mouths agape. Dongfang Haoren's reputation as trash had long spread in the Dongfang family. They were also used to Dongfang Haoren not fighting back. Dongfang Haoren suddenly became so strong that they couldn't react for a while. Some things can only be done once. Otherwise, I don't mind killing a person for fun. Dongfang Haoren said indifferently and then retreated. Kid, you're getting better and better. You actually know how to intimidate. Murong Yu said to Dongfang Haoren with a smile. It's your teaching. Dongfang Haoren laughed. This time his purpose was to intimidate these core disciples. From now on, He wanted to show his ruthless side to the Dongfang family. Otherwise, how could he control the Dongfang family in the future? And these core disciples would be the mainstay of the Dongfang family after he controls it. However, if he wanted to subdue these people, just relying on today was not enough. But today was just the beginning. This kid is getting more and more arrogant. In the distance, a few elders of the Dongfang family were looking over. One of them had a gloomy face and said with an unhappy face. Originally, they didn't like Dongfang Howren, but now, the more they looked at him, the more they disliked him. Moreover, in their eyes, Dongfang Howren was being pampered and arrogant. Naturally, they didn't like him. Let it be so awe-inspiring. Once he enters Purple Sun Paradise, he can forget about coming out. Once the thunder drum is taken away, he's dead for sure. Another elder glanced at Dongfang Howren indifferently and said coldly, because of Dongfang Howren's powerful move, in the following time, no one dared to provoke them. Those with lower realms did not dare to make a move. They were afraid that they would suffer the same fate as the previous person. Those with higher realms disdained to make a move. Soon, the day of the opening of the Purple Sun Paradise arrived. One by one, the core disciples of the Dongfang family were transported in. Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren were the last two to go in. Whoosh! The moment Murong Yu stepped into the teleportation array, he felt several powerful cold divine senses sweep over from afar, directly sweeping over his body. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. These divine senses confirmed his guess. In Purple Sun Paradise, if these people dared to make a move, he wouldn't mind killing them. It just so happened that the demonic vine needed blood essence to break through. After entering Purple Sun Paradise, Murong Yu began to recall some information about it. This is a 4-elemental great world. There are manifestation realm ferocious beasts inside. After entering Purple Sun Paradise, Murong Yu began to recall some information about it. Almost every 1,000 years, Purple Sun Paradise would open. Moreover, the entrance was fixed. Therefore, there were no treasures near the entrance. The core disciples of the Dongfang family were obviously quite experienced. After entering, they quickly soared into the sky and flew forward. Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren also quickly flew forward. After a while, Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren stopped, because they were followed by a few tails. More than 10 people split into several groups and followed them from afar. Seeing Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren stop, those people also stopped. Then, they pretended as if nothing happened and looked around for treasures. All of a sudden, a cultivator screamed in agony. The people around him were shocked and looked towards the source of the sound, only to see a vine piercing through that person's heart. At the same time, that cultivator's blood was like a flood being swallowed by the vine. In the blink of an eye, that person was swallowed up and turned into a dried corpse. He couldn't be more dead. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were shocked, and some of the people who reacted quickly had already started attacking the vine. But just as they were about to attack, a large number of vines rushed out from the ground under their feet. One by one, the cultivators didn't have time to react. They were either pierced through by the vines or strangled to death. In the end, in less than 10 breaths of time, the 10 people who were following Murong Yu were all killed by the vines. The ones who killed them were naturally the devil vine. After arriving at Purple Sun Paradise, Murong Yu no longer had any scruples and began to kill. Dongfang Howren naturally didn't have any objections to this. Although these people might become the mainstay of the Dongfang family in the future. But the Dongfang family had so many disciples, they didn't lack these people. What a pity. If these people were in the manifestation realm, they would be very useful to Murong Yu. They're useless now, but it's better than nothing. Seeing that the devil vine didn't change at all, Murong Yu shook his head regretfully. This little bastard. The elders of the Dongfang family, who were secretly observing Murong Yu and Li Wuyo, gnashed their teeth in anger. They couldn't wait to kill Murong Yu, but in the end they held back. Lead them to the depths of Purple Sun Paradise. At the same time, Make those idiots stay away from Dongfang Howren if they don't want to die. An elder said angrily. No one knew what method they used, but in the following time, Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren continued to walk towards the depths of Purple Sun Paradise. They gradually approached the trap that the Dongfang family had set up beforehand. Along the way, Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren occasionally obtained some heaven and earth treasures that weren't too precious. But they didn't meet any of the Dongfang family's core disciples. They didn't even meet any relatively strong, ferocious beasts. It was as if they were all chased away by someone. As for Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren, it was their first time entering Purple Sun Paradise. They didn't have any experience at all, so they didn't notice anything along the way. Chapter 1961. Murong Yu. I've always felt that there's something strange about this place. Do you feel the same? Also, don't you feel that someone has been secretly watching us? In a valley, Dongfang Howren stopped and turned to look at Murong Yu with a puzzled expression. Murong Yu nodded and said in a speechless manner, "We've already entered a formation. You're too slow to notice. The Dongfang family is going to make a move on you soon. Isn't it normal for them to secretly watch us?" Formation? Dongfang Howren's expression suddenly changed. Could it be that they're going to make a move on us here? Murong Yu just shook his head. In fact, the moment he entered this formation, he already knew that this was a formation. However, he didn't know if this formation was originally here or if it was set up by the Dongfang family. Therefore, he couldn't determine if the Dongfang family was going to make a move on them here. However, if the Dongfang family really dared to make a move here, then they would have miscalculated. Ha! Little bastard, you're quite smart. We're indeed going to make a move on you here. Before Dongfang Howren's voice fell, a thunderous voice rolled over, causing Dongfang Howren's blood to become restless. At the same time, Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren saw dozens of figures quickly flying over from the distance and finally stopped outside the valley. Dongfang Howren's expression changed slightly. You dare to make a move on me? Aren't you afraid that the thunderous drum will fly away? The thunderous drum flying away was the only thing Dongfang Howren used to threaten the Dongfang family. They didn't dare to make a move on him. If they didn't care about this point, Dongfang Howren would be in danger. Ha! Little bastard, although we don't know if you're telling the truth. But even if you're telling the truth, why don't you let the thunderous drum fly away here for me to see? An 8th level elder laughed out loud, appearing to have a card up his sleeve. Hearing this, Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have discovered something. However, the formation hadn't been activated yet, so he hadn't discovered anything. Do you know where this place is? It seemed like the thunderclap drum was about to change owners. These people were very happy and started to explain to Murong Yu and Li Wuyo. Purple Sun Paradise is a world left behind by a fallen expert from the immemorial era. Do you know what a great world is? Even Insight Realm experts could only create small worlds. In other words, the Purple Sun Grotto was a world left behind by an almighty who had surpassed the Dark Insight Realm. And this formation is the formation that controls the entire Purple Sun Paradise. Here, even if the thunderclap drum is a profound underworld origin artifact, it is unable to break free from the confinement of the formation. Dongfang Howren's face changed slightly. If that was the case, then it would be difficult for them to escape today. However, when he saw Murong Yu's calm expression, he calmed down. He didn't know why, but Dongfang Howren could feel that as long as Murong Yu was here, there was nothing to worry about. At every critical moment, Murong Yu was always able to create miracles. Don't talk nonsense. Just activate the formation and imprison them, said an 8th level elder impatiently. The other elders nodded and began to act at the same time. Dozens of high-level elders acted at the same time, each of them releasing an incomparably powerful force. Following a special trajectory, they all blasted towards the valley where Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren were. Murong Yu and Dongfang Howren didn't even have time to react before the valley exploded with light that soared into the sky. The colorful light directly enveloped the entire valley. In the next moment, Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoren discovered that they were no longer in the valley. They had clearly appeared in an inexplicable space, inside the formation space. At the same time, an incomparably powerful pressure came from all directions like a tidal wave. With just one round of attacks, Dongfang Haoren's blood and qi were surging from the impact. Furthermore, Murong Yu discovered that the space here had been confined. At the same time, an inexplicable force was constantly acting on their bodies, beginning to suppress their cultivation. If this continued, the two of them would eventually suffer a calamity here. Moreover, although Murong Yu wasn't afraid of the formation, that was under the condition that the formation wasn't activated. Once the formation's power was activated, he would still be blasted to death. This formation was actually the formation that controlled the Purple Sun Paradise. The Purple Sun Paradise was created by a supreme existence that surpassed the Netherworld realm. Such a formation could easily kill Murong Yu, who was only at the Bright World realm first level. Thus, Murong Yu grabbed Dongfang Haoren and quickly flew forward. Although they were now in the formation space, they were still in the original valley. It was just that they were blinded by the formation and couldn't see it. At this moment, the formation's power was becoming more and more terrifying, and the pressure was rising crazily. This could definitely wear Murong Yu and Dongfang Haoren to death. As long as they died, the thunderous drum would appear, and they would be imprisoned, unable to escape. However, could the Dongfang family really control this formation? This doubt flashed through Murong Yu's mind. At the same time, a bold idea appeared in his mind. However, this was just a flash of inspiration. Murong Yu didn't pay much attention to it. The first thing he had to do now was to rush out of this formation. Using the army character formula, Murong Yu shuttled through the void as if he was flying. Originally, this formation space was already imprisoned, but who asked Murong Yu to not be afraid of the formation's imprisonment? Therefore, the formation couldn't trap him at all. He quickly shuttled through it, as if he was taking a stroll. With a pop, Murong Yu directly left the formation and appeared outside the formation. What's going on? Seeing Murong Yu rush out, the Dongfang family's elders were all in a mess. How did Murong Yu, this little cultivator, get out? One had to know that they had already tried before. Even if they went in, it was difficult for them to come out. Some people were even directly imprisoned. This was really hard for them to accept. What made it even harder for them to accept was that after Murong Yu appeared, his figure flashed and then disappeared. Even if their divine sense enveloped the surrounding area, they couldn't find anything. In fact, Murong Yu had already re-entered the formation. Of course, this time he had already stuffed Dongfang Haoren into the Hichu Luo Shu. At the same time, he also re-entered the formation in the Hichu Luo Shu. Because the space was imprisoned, Murong Yu couldn't enter the Hichu Luo Shu from inside the formation. When he left the formation, Murong Yu had a bold idea. Since this formation could control the entire Purple Sun Grotto, then could he control this formation, then seize control of the Dongfang family, and then control the entire Purple Sun Grotto? In this regard, Murong Yu was quite confident. He believed in his own attainments and formations. Moreover, even if he couldn't do it, wasn't there still Hichu, this heaven-defying existence? This guy's understanding of formations could be said to be unprecedented in history and would never be surpassed in the future. There were many unsolvable array formations that he could decipher with a single glance. Hichu Luo Shu turned into an invisible particle floating in the void of the formation, drifting with a large number of other particles. As for Murong Yu, he'd already sent out a strand of his divine sense to make contact with the formation. Very quickly, Murong Yu found something. The formation here wasn't very complicated. In fact, it was quite simple. Not long after, a model of this formation and Purple Sun Grotto had already appeared clearly in his mind. This was an incomparably huge ball. On the outside of the ball were threads that looked like spider webs. It was these threads that were connected to each other to form this huge sphere. These threads were like tentacles that covered the entire ball and were distributed to every corner of the ball. These threads were the formation that Murong Yu was in. In the middle of the ball, there was an incomparably huge crystal. All the threads on the outside of the ball were connected to the crystal. Murong Yu guessed that the crystal was the core of the entire world, just like the crystal core of a ferocious beast. The crystal was also the eye of the formation that Murong Yu was in. It was responsible for providing an endless supply of energy and supporting the operation of the entire Purple Sun Grotto at the same time. If he could control the crystal, he could control this formation and the entire Purple Sun Grotto. Moreover, during this process, Murong Yu also discovered that the reason why the Dongfang family elders could control this formation was not that they had already controlled the crystal. In fact, they had only moved a few threads and temporarily triggered an extremely small portion of the formation's power. Otherwise, although this formation was simple, its power was not ordinary. Murong Yu would have been shredded into pieces long ago. Even if he controlled all the threads, as long as he did not control the crystal, he would not be able to truly control this formation. Only when he completely controlled the crystal could he control the formation in Purple Sun Grotto. Murong Yu pondered for a moment. In the next moment, his divine thought followed one of the threads and avoided the threads that were controlled by the Dongfang family. He directly rushed towards the crystal. Buzz! Before his divine thought could reach the crystal, the thread suddenly exploded with an extremely strong aura and shattered Murong Yu's divine thought. In Murong Yu's imagination, if it were that easy, the Dongfang family would have already taken control of the crystal long ago. In the following time, Murong Yu kept trying, but none of his attempts were successful. Moreover, he also tried to reach through different threads, but all of them failed. Since this is not successful, then I can only control one thread first. Then I will follow the vine to the melon and control the crystal in one fell swoop. Murong Yu thought in his heart and already had a plan. Chapter 1962. Like a spider web. The threads were densely distributed throughout the entire Purple Sun Grotto. They were like the roots of a tree, but there were so many of them that they were uncountable. Spiritual sense could not directly rush into the crystal. It could not even follow the threads. Perhaps this was the crystal's way of protecting itself. Therefore, in order to control the crystal, one must first control one or more of the threads. At this moment, Murong Yu's mind was completely focused on him. His incomparably powerful divine sense covered one of the invisible threads and began refining it. Of course, Murong Yu wasn't completely unrestrained. If those senior elders of the Dongfang family were not here, he would be able to study and even refine this formation without any scruples. However, he had to prevent himself from being discovered by the senior elders of the Dongfang family. Therefore, although Murong Yu's spiritual sense came out in full force, it was as if it was invisible. He appeared to be very careful. As a result, he could not maintain his efficiency. However, Murong Yu did not have much. What he had the most was time. He could afford to waste this time. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to refine the threads. One of the threads didn't contain much energy. Furthermore, with Murong Yu's attainments in arrays, he was able to quickly familiarize himself with the characteristics of this thread. In the end, he spent a total of 3 days before he was able to control this thread. Once he understood it, all the other threads would be the same. Murong Yu could refine the other threads. However, there were more than billions of threads here. When would he be able to refine all of them? Even if he refined all of them, it would be useless. Without the control crystal, he could not truly control this array and Purple Sun Grotto. If this array was compared to a tree, then the threads would be the branches. Even if all the branches were cut off, the tree would still be standing between heaven and earth. Therefore, Murong Yu did not plan on controlling more threads. Instead, he began to drive straight towards the crystal. Since the entire thread was already under Murong Yu's control, Murong Yu's divine sense, which was hidden within the thread, directly reached the crystal. The crystal was not big, only about the size of a fist. However, Murong Yu could feel an extremely powerful and terrifying power from the crystal. In fact, in Murong Yu's eyes, the power radiating from the crystal was so dazzling that he could not even open his eyes. It was as if he had been blinded. In the end, Murong Yu had to temporarily seal off his ability to see the light of power. Only then could he see again. Murong Yu's spiritual sense covered the crystal, but just as it covered it, it was bounced back by a force, unable to stay on top of the crystal. However, Murong Yu could still vaguely see the structure of the crystal. Inside the crystal was an amalgamation of formations. Just like the formation inside the Yuan artifact, it was formed by combining multiple formations together. In the end, they fused together to form an incomparably huge formation. It was incomparably perfect. In order to control this crystal, one had to understand the structure of the formation inside, and even control the formation inside. In fact, what Murong Yu wanted to do was to control the formation inside the crystal. In this way, he would be able to control the entire crystal. However, although it was easy to say, it was difficult to do it. First of all, Murong Yu's spiritual sense could not stay on the surface of the crystal at all, let alone explore it and control the formation inside. No single formation is perfect, let alone multiple formations combined together. Although it looks perfect, it definitely has a weakness. I just need to find this weakness, and my spiritual sense can cut in. Murong Yu thought in his heart. He used his spiritual sense to envelop the entire crystal. His spiritual sense did not come into contact with the crystal. Time continued to pass. Day after day passed. After a full month, Murong Yu finally found something. The formation inside the crystal was constantly changing its position. Perhaps this was one of the effective preventive measures to prevent it from being changed or controlled. One cycle every 10 days. In 1 month, there had already been 3 cycles. Every time, it seemed so perfect and flawless. However, with Murong Yu's formation attainments and Hichu's help, he finally found one of the weaknesses of the formation. A weakness that even he and Hichu could not see. Perhaps this was because of their cultivation realm and strength. After all, this formation was set up by a powerhouse who had surpassed the Insight realm. Murong Yu was only at the Bright World realm. There was a gap of 3 realms between them. However, this also proved that Murong Yu's formation attainments were extremely high. At this moment, the formation outside the valley was still operating. Murong Yu realized that the high-level elders of the Dongfang family could only trigger the formation's power, but could not stop it from operating. Therefore, those high-level elders still did not leave. However, this was exactly what Murong Yu wanted to see. If these high-level elders all left, how could he carry out his next plan? Not only that, Murong Yu even hoped that the entire Dongfang family's elders and patriarch would come in. This way, he could catch all of them in one fell swoop and get it done once and for all. Whoosh! On this day, when the formation began another cycle, Murong Yu's divine was like a needle that fiercely pierced in. Crack! A dull sound came from the crystal, and the formation that was operating all the time suddenly stopped for a moment. It was like gears that were driven by each other. Murong Yu suddenly inserted a steel rod between 2 of the gears, and the entire gear was suddenly stuck. That's right, these formations were immediately stuck. Just as the formation was stuck and stopped operating, Murong Yu's divine will rushed straight in and directly rushed into a formation that he had already observed. This formation was the weakest of all the formations, and it had a very obvious flaw. Murong Yu's divine will directly rushed up and ruthlessly bombarded the flaw of the formation like a giant hammer. Boom! Crack! Crack! In the next moment, the formation was directly destroyed. Originally, the formations inside the crystals were linked to each other, fusing and combining with each other. One led the other to operate. Now that the breakthrough of this formation was broken, the other formations immediately stopped moving. In other words, the entire formation in the crystal stopped. At the same time, the formation in the valley also stopped. Why did the formation stop so early this time? A level 7 elder of the Dongfang family asked curiously. The other senior elders also looked at each other. Then, They entered the valley to investigate, but what did they find? Moreover, they could not even find Morongyu's trace. This made them very angry and discouraged. However, they did not leave. Although they could not find Morongyu, they were certain that Morongyu was in Purple Sun Grotto. Therefore, they had to search in Purple Sun Grotto, and they had already sealed the exit of Purple Sun Grotto, ready to wait for him. However, in the end, they realized that they were trapped in a cocoon of their own making. In the end, they buried themselves in the hole they dug. All the formation stopped. Morongyu laughed in his heart, and immediately, an extremely powerful divine will rushed in. He immediately began to attack. The formations that were not activated were no threat to Morongyu. As for Morongyu, with the help of the river diagram, he quickly took control of the array formations one by one. In less than a month, he had already taken control of all the arrays in the crystal. Controlling all the formations meant that Morongyu controlled the entire crystal. On this day, Morongyu's heart moved, and he repaired the first formation that was destroyed. In the next moment, the entire formation in the crystal began to operate again. The trajectory of the formation was even more perfect, and there were almost no flaws that could be found. This was because in the process of controlling the formation, Morongyu had already upgraded the formations with his own knowledge of formations and Hichu suggestions. They had basically fixed the original obvious flaws. After being repaired by the two of them, even a formation master who surpassed the profound underworld realm would find it difficult to discover the flaws of these formations. Moreover, Morongyu had also shifted the position of part of the formation. As such, the combination of the formations became even more perfect. Whoosh! The moment the formation began to operate, Morongyu felt that his divine will had instantly reached every corner of Purple Sun Grotto. One must know that before this, the divine will of all the cultivators who entered Purple Sun Grotto was suppressed. Even a powerhouse who was half a step into the profound underworld realm could not extend their divine will too far, let alone cover the entire Purple Sun Grotto. However, Morongyu's divine will had covered the entire Purple Sun Grotto effortlessly. In fact, Morongyu even had a feeling that he was now the ruler of Purple Sun Grotto, just like the ruler of the Holy World. Here, he could borrow all the power of Purple Sun Grotto to suppress the other party. This was a world that had surpassed the profound underworld realm. How powerful was it? Morongyu still didn't know, but what he did know was that this power was absolutely terrifying. From now on, Purple Sun Grotto was owned by Morong. It was Morongyu's personal property. Moreover, this was equivalent to a 4-yuan star. The heaven and earth essence qi was very rich, enough for Zhao Jiqing and the rest to cultivate here. Moreover, Purple Sun Grotto was much better than an ordinary 4-yuan star. This was because there were many different levels of demonic beasts and treasures here. If Zhao Jiqing and the rest cultivated here, it would not be like when they were in Hichu Luoshu, where they could only cultivate. They could also explore and gain experience here. They could fight with beasts and increase their combat strength. This time, it was the right decision to follow Dongfang Haoran to the Dongfang family. Although his cultivation level did not increase, it was all worth it. Moreover, who knew if his cultivation level had increased? Morongyu thought happily. However, now was the best time to let Zhao Jiqing and the rest out. He had to deal with the Dongfang family first. Yes, he had to deal with the Dongfang family. In Purple Sun Grotto, Morongyu had the ability to deal with them. Chapter 1963. Whoosh! Morongyu's figure appeared in Purple Sun Grotto in front of the Dongfang family senior elders. The senior elders were obviously stunned by Morongyu's sudden appearance. Morongyu's appearance came without any warning. Even though they were much stronger than Morongyu, they couldn't discover how Morongyu appeared. Then the question came, was Morongyu's realm or strength stronger than theirs? The senior elders of the Dongfang family suddenly had this thought. Impossible. But when they saw that Morongyu was only at level 1 Bright World Realm, they denied their thoughts. However, if Morongyu wasn't stronger than them, How did he manage to appear here without them noticing? This was a question. However, this question didn't stay in their minds for long. They knew that as long as they captured Moronyu, they could read his memories. Moreover, if this was a cultivation technique, it could greatly increase their strength. Therefore, they all looked at Moronyu with shining eyes. Little bastard, where's that little bastard Dongfang Howren? Where's he now? Hurry up and hand him over. A level 7 elder looked at Moronyu indifferently with a ferocious expression. Old bastard, who are you talking to? Moronyu retorted. He wasn't afraid of them at all. Old bastard. The level 7 elder was tricked, but he quickly reacted. In anger, he reached out his hand and grabbed Moronyu. Old bastard, you're not my opponent. Do you believe that I can beat you down with one punch? Moronyu looked at the level 7 elder with a mocking expression. If he was outside Purple Sun Grotto, Moronyu would naturally run as far as he could when he saw the other party making a move. How could he resist a terrifying existence at the 7th level of the creation realm? However, that might not be the case in Purple Sun Grotto. The 7th rank elder of the Dongfang family was furious. He felt that Moronyu was humiliating him. Therefore, his speed became even faster. In the blink of an eye, his large hand had already grabbed Moronyu's head. Right at that moment, Moronyu made his move and sent out a punch. It was an ordinary punch. Furthermore, Moronyu did not block the rank 7 elder's attack. Instead, he attacked the rank 7 elder's chest. Seeing this scene, all the senior elders of the Dongfang family showed disdain. He felt that Moronyu was simply a big idiot. But in the next moment, their thoughts changed. Bang! Moronyu's fist arrived first. Before the level 7 elder could grab his head, his fist had already landed on the level 7 elder's chest. After a muffled sound, the level 7 elder immediately let out a shrill scream and was instantly sent flying. In the end, the level 7 elder drew a beautiful parabola in the void and landed heavily on the ground. Seeing this scene, the other senior elders of the Dongfang family's pupils constricted. Moronyu's punch was too terrifying. If it were them, they would not be able to block it at all. They would end up exactly the same as the level 7 elder. However, this was too terrifying. Could Moronyu be a terrifying existence in a profound underworld realm? If that was the case, there would not be a match for him even if they used all the power of the Dongfang family. Moronyu could wipe out the entire Dongfang family with a single slap. Thinking of this, everyone's foreheads could not help but drip with cold sweat. They were about to pee their pants. This bastard, does a profound underworld realm powerhouse have to pretend to be weak? He actually pretended to be a bright world realm cultivator. Damn it! A senior elder of the Dongfang family cursed in his heart. Fortunately, Moronyu did not know what they were thinking. Otherwise, they would have died of laughter. How was he a profound underworld realm supreme existence? He was clearly a bright world realm level 1 cultivator. With a wave of his hand, the level 7 elder who was lying on the ground and groaning in pain was pulled over by Moronyu. A level 7 elder was lying on the ground and groaning in pain like a scoundrel. This was not a shameless act, but a real pain. This was because although Moronyu's attack looked ordinary, it contained the power of Purple Sun Grotto's soul attack. After the power of the punch surged into the level 7 elder's body, it continued to wreak havoc in his body, tormenting the level 7 elder. At the same time, Moronyu's soul power continued to strangle the level 7 elder's soul. Although he did not kill the level 7 elder, it was like a knife constantly cutting his soul, causing the level 7 elder to be in so much pain that he wanted to die. Submit or die. You can choose between the two. Moronyu beamed as he looked at the rank 7 elder, allowing him to make his choice. The level 7 elder did not speak. He only looked at Moronyu with resentment. If looks could kill, Moronyu would have been killed countless times over by now. Senior, we failed to recognize Mount Tai and offended you. Please forgive us. Although our Dongfang family is nothing, we are willing to compensate you for your loss. A level 8 elder walked over and looked at Moronyu with a complicated expression. They all guessed that Moronyu was a terrifying, profound underworld realm existence and did not have the heart to fight at all. Therefore, they all gave in. It was not only because the Dongfang family could not afford to lose a senior elder. It was also because they could be killed by Murong Yu here. Saving that rank 7 elder was the same as saving themselves. So what if they used up all the wealth of the Dongfang family? They could still earn back their wealth, but if they died, they would really die. Murong Yu was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. Therefore, he showed an amused expression and said, "You are willing to compensate? You can accept any conditions?" "Yes." The rank 8 elder who spoke earlier exchanged glances with the other senior elders, then gritted his teeth and nodded. "I only have one condition," Murong Yu said calmly. After hearing Murong Yu's words, the senior elders of the Dongfang family did not relax or feel happy. Instead, they all had a bad feeling in their hearts. "The Dongfang family will submit to me. You will become my slaves and work for me," Murong Yu said calmly. Everyone's expression changed drastically. The Dongfang family submitting to him was a condition that they could accept. At most, they would leave the Dongfang family with the people of the Dongfang family and hand the empty Dongfang family to Murong Yu. However, if they were to become slaves, they would never be able to accept this condition. "Senior, since you're a netherworld enlightened cultivator, as long as you make the call, even the solar sect and lunar sect will follow you. Our Dongfang family is just a small force. Even if we submit to you, we won't be able to do anything." The level 8 elder who spoke before could only bite the bullet and say. Murong Yu smiled faintly and said, "Who told you that I am at the netherworld realm? I am only at the bright world realm level 1. Therefore, although your Dongfang family is not powerful, it will be of great help to me." Bright world realm level 1? The senior elders of the Dongfang family were all speechless. This guy really liked to pretend. If he was really at the bright world realm level 1, it was impossible. How could a bright world realm level 1 be so powerful? "All right, I'm not negotiating with you. You only have 2 choices, submit or die. I will give you 10 breaths of time. After 10 breaths of time, if you still can't make a choice, I will help you make a choice," Murong Yu said faintly. However, his words were very piercing, and it made the senior elders of the Dongfang family feel very pained. Aside from the rank 7 elder who had been injured by Murong Yu, the rest of the elders looked at each other in dismay. Immediately after, their expressions became resolute, as if they had made some kind of decision. "Kill!" Suddenly, dozens of senior elders roared at the same time. Each and every one of them unleashed their strongest power and summoned out all kinds of powerful Yuan artifacts. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, it ferociously attacked Murong Yu. They would not choose either of the 2 choices. Whether Murong Yu was at the netherworld realm or not, they had to give it their all. Which one of them, who could cultivate to the highest level of the creation realm, was not someone with a strong heart? Therefore, they'd rather fight it out with Murong Yu than make a direct decision. Moreover, they were not willing to choose either of the 2 choices. Murong Yu shook his head helplessly, and his face did not even change. He had already guessed the crowd's reaction. "Do you think you can kill me even if you join forces?" "You underestimate me too much, or you underestimate Purple Sun Grotto too much. Grotto power, suppress me." Murong Yu smiled faintly and slammed his palm down. At this moment, the senior elders of the Dongfang family suddenly felt as if a huge primordial star had suddenly attached to their backs. The terrifying pressure kept suppressing them, almost breaking their backs. At the same time, the power they unleashed was also suppressed to the point that it was difficult for them to move. Their originally fast speed was now as slow as a snail, and they could not even move. "All of you kneel down," Murong Yu roared. The power suppressing them increased tremendously. Plop, plop, plop. The senior elders of the Dongfang family could not take it anymore, and were forced to kneel down one by one. It was not that they were too weak, but that Murong Yu was too strong. In fact, it was not that Murong Yu was too strong, but that he had borrowed the power of Purple Sun Grotto. In order to suppress these people, Muron, you had mobilized most of the power of Purple Sun Grotto. They were strong, but how could they resist the power of the entire Purple Sun Grotto? Therefore, they could not help but kneel down in humiliation. Humiliation. It was a great humiliation. You really shouldn't have attacked me. The worst thing you should have done was to let me enter Purple Sun Grotto. Muron, you said faintly, and an enormous amount of soul power had already surged into the soul space of the 7th grade elder that he had injured. Chapter 1964. Muron Yu's soul had already reached the pinnacle of the rebirth state. Although it was severely incompatible with his physical body, his soul was probably the strongest in the solar system. There were simply too few soul cultivators. Other than Muron Yu, it was still a question whether there was a second soul cultivator in the solar system. As for the Dongfang family's level 7 elder, without his powerful protection, his soul was like exposed to the air without any protection. Therefore, he couldn't resist Muron Yu's soul at all and was directly pierced by Muron Yu. Hearing his miserable screams, the faces of the other elders of the Dongfang family changed. Their hatred for Muron Yu grew even stronger. But what could they do now? Under the suppression of the power of the Purple Sun Paradise, they could not even commit suicide. They were trapped in a trap of their own making. If they hadn't lured Muron Yu into Purple Sun Grotto, they wouldn't have ended up like this. Suddenly, the level 7 elder's screams stopped abruptly. Under the gloomy gazes of the other elders of the Dongfang family, the level 7 elder stood up abruptly and bowed deeply to Muron Yu. Slave Dongfang Chun greets the Lord. Muron Yu had successfully controlled his soul and made him Muron Yu's slave. The reason why everyone was gloomy was because they knew that they would end up like Dongfang Chun and become one of Muron Yu's many slaves. No, many slaves? Muron Yu was only a level 1 bright world state. How strong was his soul? To be able to control the soul of a level 7 elder? Even if his soul was very powerful and could control a 7th grade elder, could he control more powerful manifestation realm warriors? Thinking of this, everyone was relieved. As long as they didn't become Muron Yu's slaves, it was fine. Once they became Muron Yu's slaves, they would never be able to turn over a new leaf. If they didn't become his slaves, it would be better to be suppressed in Purple Sun Grotto. As long as they kept enslaving them, they would eventually be able to escape. However, what they did not know was that Muron Yu was a soul cultivator. His soul was extraordinarily powerful. It wouldn't be a problem to control all the senior elders in the Dongfang family, not to mention just a few dozen senior elders. I've changed my mind. With a blessed realm slave, I'll be able to do many things that I couldn't do in the past. Therefore, I don't feel like killing you. I've decided to refine all of you into my slaves. Now, who wants to start? If you take the initiative to open up your souls, it will be very easy for you, and the process will be the same. If I had come alone, you would have already seen an example. Muron Yu looked at the dozens of senior elders of the Dongfang family with a smile. However, in the eyes of the elders, his smile was no different from the smile of a devil. You want us to submit? That's impossible. The level 8 elder who communicated with Muron Yu previously rejected Muron Yu's good intentions without hesitation. Muron Yu nodded slightly, and the smile on his face became even brighter. Then, I'll start with you. As he spoke, he had already reached out his hand and directly grabbed the level 8 elder in the air. Then, shrill screams could be heard continuously. After a long time, this level 8 elder also became Muron Yu's slave. For the rest of the time, Muron Yu could not be bothered to talk nonsense with those people. He directly started to refine them by force. The senior elders of the Dongfang family were refined one by one. When there were only 10 people being refined, those 10 people actually took the initiative to submit, looking at the miserable state of the people in front of them. So what if they were resilient? Didn't they still break down? 72. Muron Yu refined a total of 72 senior elders of the Dongfang family as his slaves. However, most of them were level 7 elders, and only 5 of them were level 8 elders. After all, level 8 elders were already considered the most powerful people in the solar system. From the memories of these slaves, Muronyu learned that 1/3 of the senior elders of the Dongfang family had entered Purple Sun Grotto Heaven this time. In other words, the total number of senior elders of the Dongfang family was about 201, and there were less than 20 level 8 elders, only 18 of them. However, level 8 elders were not the most powerful people in the Dongfang family. The most powerful one had reached Destiny Realm level 9, and that was their patriarch. The patriarch of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Lang, was the only Destiny Realm level 9 existence in the Dongfang family. Other than these senior elders and patriarch, the Dongfang family had about 2,000 low-level and mid-level elders. One could imagine how many senior elders there were. However, the Dongfang family was not weak. After all, the Dongfang family was one of the top 10 forces in the solar system, excluding the Sun Sect and the Lunar Sect. Forces like the Sun Flame Sect and the Golden Flame Castle were on par with the Dongfang family in terms of strength. However, what shocked Muronyu was that from the memories of these senior elders, Muronyu knew how big the gap between the Dongfang family and the Sun Sect was. The total number of level 8 elders in the top 10 forces was about 200. As for Destiny Realm level 9 existences, they were evenly distributed among the top 10 forces, and each force had one. However, the Sun Sect had at least as many level 9 elders as the top 10 forces combined, and perhaps even more. As for level 8 elders, the Sun Sect had at least 2,000, or even more. 2,000 level 8 elders. What kind of concept was that? Muronyu was a little confused. No wonder the top 10 forces were willing to stay in a corner and not go against the Sun Sect. The Sun Sect's strength could easily wipe out the top 10 forces' combined strength. Moreover, the Sun Sect had no lack of terrifying half-step Insight Realm existences. There were even rumors of Insight Realm powerhouses overseeing the sect. This was a gap that the top 10 forces couldn't catch up to. Even if Muronyu controlled the top 10 forces, he still wouldn't be able to fight against the Sun Sect. However, Muronyu didn't control the Dongfang family to fight against the Sun Sect. After all, he only offended Li Jiang, the level 8 elder, and the other elders didn't have any grudges with him. Moreover, as long as he was strong enough, he could control the entire solar system. Controlling the Dongfang family was just because the Dongfang family was pushing him too far. At the same time, Muronyu also needed a stable rear. This way, Zhao Jiqing and the others would be settled. Muronyu wouldn't have to worry about them anymore, and he could cultivate in peace. Dongfang Yuan, think of a way to gather Dongfang Lang and the other senior elders in Purple Sun Grotto. After subduing the 72 slaves, Muronyu pondered for a moment and said to a level 8 elder, taking advantage of Purple Sun Grotto, Muronyu naturally wouldn't let Dongfang Lang and the others go. Only by controlling all of them could he truly control the Dongfang family. Dongfang Yuan accepted the order and quickly left Purple Sun Grotto, but Muronyu didn't tell him what to do. With Dongfang Yuan's intelligence, if he couldn't trick Dongfang Lang and the others, he wouldn't be able to cultivate to level 8 of the creation realm. As for the others, Muronyu didn't dismiss them because it wasn't necessary. As long as Dongfang Lang and the others entered Purple Sun Grotto, they wouldn't be able to escape Murongyu's suppression. Sure enough, in less than half a day, Dongfang Lang led all the senior elders of the Dongfang family into Purple Sun Grotto. No one knew what Dongfang Yuan said to them, but after entering Purple Sun Grotto, these guys hurriedly flew toward Murongyu's riverside with anxious expressions. Muronyu had already taken control of Purple Sun Grotto and discovered them the moment they entered. And from the moment he saw them, Muronyu had already secretly taken action. What's going on? Where's Dongfang Howren? Where's the thunder drum? Dongfang Lang asked anxiously after arriving in front of Muronyu and the others. However, no one answered him. The senior elders of the Dongfang family all looked at Muronyu. As Murongyu's slaves, if Muronyu didn't speak, or if Muronyu didn't signal them to speak, they absolutely didn't dare to speak. Seeing this scene, Dongfang Lang and the others felt a burst of strangeness. It seemed that those people were all centered around Moronu. What kind of joke was this? That guy was only at level 1 of the Bright World realm and was considered an enemy of the Dongfang family. Why would those senior elders be led by him? How is this possible? Dongfang Lang and the others naturally didn't believe it, but the more they looked at it, the stranger it became. And with Murong Yu's words, they had no choice but to believe that all their guesses were true. Dongfang Lang, these elders have all submitted to me, Murong Yu. If you don't submit now, when will you? Murong Yu looked at Dongfang Lang and said loudly, "Presumptuous! Who do you think you are? How dare you speak like this?" A level 7 elder roared and took a step forward. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Murong Yu. "Get lost!" Before Murong Yu could speak, one of his level 8 slaves had already attacked first and sent the level 7 elder flying with a punch. However, this guy knew that Murong Yu wanted to subdue these people, so he didn't kill him and only sent him flying. "Dongfang Yuan, what's going on? Explain it to me clearly." Dongfang Lang looked at Dongfang Yuan with an ashen face. At this moment, Dongfang Yuan had already stood behind Murong Yu. When he heard Dongfang Lang's question, he said indifferently, "Patriarch Dongfang Lang, my current master is Murong Yu. I'm sorry to say that we serve different masters. Also, I advise you to submit. Otherwise, my master will have a lot of means to control you by force." Dongfang Lang and the others were livid and didn't accept Dongfang Yuan's kindness. "Traitor, I'll kill you." Dongfang Lang attacked furiously. He took a step forward and threw a punch at Dongfang Yuan. The power of a level 9 creation realm expert's attack was earth-shattering. Dongfang Yuan and the others knew how terrifying a level 9 creation realm expert was. Therefore, when he saw Dongfang Lang attack, Dongfang Yuan's face changed dramatically, and there was even a look of horror in his eyes. With his strength, it was absolutely impossible for him to withstand Dongfang Lang's full blow. If he took it head-on, he would be smashed into pieces. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.